Welcome, fellow wasteland wanderer, to a gentle journey through one of post-war America's most remarkable stories of hope and renewal. Tonight, we shall explore the complete chronicle of the new California Republic, from its humble origins as a simple farming settlement to its evolution into the largest functioning democracy in the post-nuclear world. This is a tale of ordinary people choosing extraordinary courage, of crops growing in irradiated soil, and of democracy taking root in the ashes of the old world. So settle into your most comfortable position and let your breathing slow as we walk together through sun-dappled fields of Brahmin grass and along dusty roads where traders' caravans carry not just goods but hope itself. Our story begins in the autumn silence that followed the world's end. On October 23rd, 2077, the nuclear exchange that would forever change the face of the Earth lasted only 2 hours, but its echoes would resonate through the centuries that followed. When the bombs stopped falling and the radiation storms finally calmed, what remained was a world transformed beyond recognition, yet not entirely without hope. In the valleys and deserts of California, far from the primary targets of Los Angeles and San Francisco, pockets of survivors emerged from their shelters like seeds after a long winter. The geography that had once supported sprawling cities and endless suburbs now revealed itself in its essential form: rolling hills, fertile valleys, and vast expanses of desert where life somehow still found a way to endure. The immediate aftermath was chaos, as you might expect. Communication networks had been severed, supply chains obliterated, and the very concept of government seemed to have vanished along with the mushroom clouds. Yet in this seeming emptiness, something profound was taking shape. Without the noise and complexity of the old world's institutions, people were rediscovering the fundamental truths of human cooperation, that together they could achieve what none could accomplish alone. Small groups of survivors, drawn together by necessity and mutual aid, began to establish the most basic forms of community. They shared what little they had, protected each other from the dangers of this new world, and slowly, carefully began to rebuild. These weren't grand gestures or heroic acts of reconstruction. They were the quiet, daily choices of people who refused to let the end of the world mean the end of hope. The California landscape, scarred but not broken by nuclear fire, provided a canvas for this quiet renaissance. The Pacific Ocean still lapped against the western shores, the mountains still caught the morning light, and in the valleys where radiation had settled more lightly, the soil still held the promise of new growth. It was here, in these gentle spaces between destruction and renewal, that the first settlements would take root. In the years immediately following the Great War, the survivors who would eventually form the backbone of the new California Republic were learning the most essential lessons of civilization: how to work together, how to share resources fairly, and how to build something lasting in an uncertain world. These early settlements bore little resemblance to the towns and cities that would later fly the Republic's two-headed bear flag, but they carried within them the seeds of everything that was to come. The settlement patterns that emerged were dictated by the harsh realities of the post-nuclear world. Water sources became the centers of human habitation, with small communities clustering around wells, streams, and any pre-war infrastructure that could be restored to working order. The fortunate found themselves near areas where the topography had shielded the land from the worst of the fallout, creating small pockets of relatively clean soil where crops might grow and Brahmin herds could graze. These early communities developed organically, without grand plans or central authority. Families would claim abandoned buildings or construct simple shelters from salvaged materials. Neighbors would share tools, labor, and knowledge of which plants were safe to eat and which areas should be avoided due to radiation. Children born in these settlements would grow up knowing no other world than this one, adapting with the remarkable resilience of youth to circumstances their parents could never have imagined. Trade between settlements began as soon as travel became reasonably safe. Caravans, at first nothing more than individuals with pack animals or salvaged vehicles, would brave the dangers of the wasteland to exchange surplus goods for necessities. A settlement blessed with good water might trade their excess for tools or preserved food from a community that had managed to clear and secure an old factory. These trading relationships created the first bonds between distant communities, weaving together a network of mutual dependence that would prove crucial to the Republic's later development. The social structures that emerged were necessarily simple but remarkably effective. Leaders arose naturally from among those who demonstrated competence, fairness, and genuine concern for their community's welfare. Decisions were made through informal consensus, with disputes resolved through discussion rather than force. These weren't utopian societies. They faced constant challenges from raiders, resource scarcity, and the ever-present threat of radiation sickness. But they were proving that cooperation and democracy could flourish even in the harshest circumstances. As the wasteland slowly stabilized in the decades following the Great War, a new element began to appear in the careful equation of post-nuclear survival. From the great underground shelters known as vaults, designed to preserve selected portions of American society through the nuclear holocaust, emerged small groups of people whose experience of the new world was filtered through the lens of the old. These vault dwellers brought with them something precious beyond measure: intact knowledge of pre-war technology, medicine, and social organization. They carried in their minds the blueprints for water purification systems, agricultural techniques, and democratic institutions that the surface dwellers had been painstakingly reconstructing through trial and error. Yet they also brought a certain naivety about the harsh realities of wasteland existence, having been sheltered from the gradual adaptation that had shaped the communities already struggling to survive above ground. The integration of vault dwellers into surface communities was not always smooth, but it was profoundly transformative. Their technical knowledge could revolutionize a settlement's agricultural output or solve persistent problems with water purification. Their medical training could save lives that would otherwise be lost to radiation sickness or injury. Most importantly, their institutional memory of democratic governance provided a framework for communities that had been operating on informal consensus to develop more sophisticated and scalable systems of representation and decision-making. In many cases, vault dwellers found themselves naturally assuming leadership roles, not through any inherent superiority, but because their education and training had prepared them for the complex challenges of community management. They brought literacy, mathematical skills, and most crucially, the concept that problems could be solved through systematic analysis and planning rather than mere reaction to immediate crises. The communities that successfully integrated vault dwellers with surface survivors often found themselves growing rapidly in both population and prosperity. Word would spread along the trading routes of settlements where the lights worked, where clean water flowed freely, and where disputes were resolved through fair and consistent processes. These communities became magnets for individual travelers and even entire family groups seeking a better life, creating the population growth necessary for the transition from mere survival to genuine prosperity. As the post-war decades progressed, the scattered settlements of California began to evolve into something more substantial and permanent. What had started as desperate clusters of survivors were becoming genuine communities with their own identities, traditions, and economic specializations. The transformation was gradual but unmistakable. These were no longer just places where people happened to live, but places they chose to call home. The trading posts that emerged at strategic locations along the developing caravan routes became the nerve centers of this growing network of communities. Established at crossroads, river fords, or near valuable resources, these posts provided not just commerce but also news, medical care, and sometimes sanctuary for travelers caught in the wasteland's many dangers. The proprietors of these posts often became influential figures in regional affairs, their knowledge of trade routes and their relationships with multiple communities, giving them a unique perspective on the broader patterns of recovery and growth. These trading centers began to develop their own forms of government and law enforcement, necessary for maintaining the trust that trade required. A merchant needed to know that contracts would be honored, that goods stored overnight would be safe, and that disputes would be resolved fairly. The systems that evolved were practical and flexible, often borrowing elements from the various communities that the traders served while adapting to the unique requirements of commercial activity. The success of these trading networks created a positive feedback loop that accelerated development throughout the region. Communities with surplus production could exchange it for goods they lacked, allowing for specialization and efficiency that improved everyone's standard of living. A settlement with particularly fertile soil could focus on agriculture, trading their excess food for tools, medicine, or manufactured goods produced elsewhere. This specialization led to improvements in technique and productivity that benefited the entire network. Perhaps most importantly, these trading relationships created bonds of mutual interest that transcended the boundaries of individual settlements. A community's prosperity became linked to the success of its trading partners, creating incentives for cooperation and mutual aid that would prove crucial when external threats emerged. The groundwork was being laid, settlement by settlement and trade route by trade route, for something unprecedented in the post-war world: mighty association of communities working together for their common benefit. In the year 2142, in a valley that had once been known for its agricultural productivity and was slowly regaining that reputation, a small community called Shady Sands was taking shape around a collection of pre-war buildings and a reliable well. The settlement's name spoke to its character. It was a place of modest comfort in a harsh world, where the simple pleasures of clean water and protection from the desert sun were treasures beyond price. The community that grew up around Shady Sands was unremarkable in many ways, which perhaps was exactly what made it so remarkable. Its founders were not visionaries or heroes in the traditional sense, but simply people who understood the value of cooperation and hard work. They cleared the land methodically, planted crops suited to the post-war soil conditions, and built sturdy shelters that could withstand both the elements and the occasional threat from wasteland predators or raiders. What set Shady Sands apart from many other settlements was the character of its leadership and the principles that guided its development. From its earliest days, the community operated on the assumption that every voice deserved to be heard and that decisions affecting everyone should be made collectively. This wasn't formalized democracy in the sense that would later characterize the Republic, but it was the essential democratic spirit that would eventually flower into something much grander. The daily life of Shady Sands revolved around the rhythms of agriculture and the careful management of resources. Families worked their assigned plots while also contributing to communal projects, maintaining the well, repairing buildings, and standing watch against the dangers that still lurked in the wasteland. Children learned not just reading and writing, but also the practical skills necessary for survival and the social skills necessary for community harmony. The settlement's location proved fortuitous as trade networks developed. Situated along what was becoming a major caravan route, Shady Sands offered travelers a safe place to rest, resupply, and conduct business. The income from this trade, combined with the community's agricultural surplus, created a prosperity that allowed for improvements and expansion that further enhanced their ability to serve both residents and visitors. As word of Shady Sands' success spread, other communities began to look to them for guidance and inspiration. Delegations would arrive seeking advice on everything from crop rotation to conflict resolution. These interactions planted the seeds of the broader relationships that would eventually lead to formal political union, but in these early days they were simply neighbors helping neighbors in the tradition that had sustained them all through the darkest years following the war. Among the founders and early leaders of Shady Sands, one figure stands out for his combination of practical wisdom and forward-thinking vision. Aradesh, whose leadership style would profoundly influence the development of what would eventually become the new California Republic, embodied the democratic principles that would define the settlement's character for generations to come. Aradesh's approach to leadership was rooted in consultation and consensus building rather than authoritarian command. He understood that in a community where everyone's survival depended on everyone else's cooperation, decisions had to be made in a way that maintained unity and mutual respect. His meetings were open to all adult members of the community, and while his voice carried weight due to his experience and judgment, he was careful to ensure that other perspectives were heard and considered. Under Aradesh's guidance, Shady Sands developed some of the first formal institutions that would later be recognized as precursors to republic governance. A council system emerged, with representatives chosen from different families and occupational groups. Tishan of Kozendu Kasen, Wenibol Sokan Mi of Kasen. Regular assemblies were held where community issues could be discussed and decisions made collectively. Most importantly, principles of fairness and equal treatment were established that would survive and flourish long after Aradesh himself had passed from the scene. The leader's personal qualities were as important as his institutional innovations. Aradesh was known for his calm demeanor in crisis situations, his willingness to listen before speaking, and his genuine concern for the welfare of every member of the community. He worked alongside others in the fields and took his turn at guard duty, demonstrating that leadership was about service rather than privilege. These examples set a tone that influenced the community's culture in profound and lasting ways. Aradesh's vision extended beyond the boundaries of Shady Sands itself. He understood that the settlement's long-term security and prosperity depended on the success of the broader network of communities that was developing throughout the region. His diplomatic efforts to establish and maintain good relationships with neighboring settlements laid the groundwork for the cooperative spirit that would eventually make political union not just possible but natural and beneficial. The legacy of Aradesh's leadership would become apparent in the years that followed, as Shady Sands continued to grow and prosper while maintaining the democratic values and cooperative spirit that he had helped to establish. The institutions he fostered would prove resilient enough to adapt and evolve as circumstances changed, while the principles he championed would become the foundation upon which the entire republic would eventually be built. In the year 2161, a figure emerged from Vault 13, whose actions would reshape not only Shady Sands but the entire trajectory of post-war civilization in California. This vault dweller, seeking a replacement water purification chip to save their underground community, would inadvertently become a catalyst for changes that would echo through the generations, helping to transform isolated settlements into the beginnings of a unified republic. The vault dweller's arrival in Shady Sands came at a crucial moment in the settlement's development. The community had grown beyond its initial founders but was facing new challenges that tested the limits of their informal governance structures. Their intervention in the Khn raids that had been plaguing the settlement demonstrated not just individual courage but the power of advanced training and equipment working in service of community defense. More significant than any single act of heroism was the vault dwellers' influence on the community's understanding of what was possible. Their stories of the wider wasteland, their knowledge of pre-war technology and governance, and their demonstration that one person could make a meaningful difference in the struggle against chaos and oppression, inspired the residents of Shady Sands to think beyond mere survival toward active improvement of their circumstances. The vault dwellers' methods of problem-solving, systematic analysis, careful planning, and decisive action provided models that the community began to adopt in their own decision-making processes. Their approach to dealing with external threats through a combination of diplomacy, deterrence, and, when necessary, force, would influence Shady Sands' relationships with other communities for decades to come. Perhaps most importantly, the vault dwellers' success in rallying the wasteland's disparate communities against the threat of the Master's army demonstrated the power of voluntary cooperation between independent settlements. This experience of working together toward a common goal, of seeing how much could be accomplished when communities pooled their resources and expertise, planted the intellectual seeds of what would eventually become the formal political union of the new California Republic. The gratitude and respect that Shady Sands felt toward the vault dweller extended beyond personal recognition to a deeper appreciation for the values and methods they represented. The democratic ideals, the commitment to the common good, and the belief that ordinary people could shape their own destiny through collective action. These became part of Shady Sands' identity in a way that would influence their approach to growth and governance for generations to come. In the years following the Vault Dwellers' intervention and the defeat of the Master's threat, Shady Sands entered a period of growth and consolidation that would prove crucial to its eventual role as the heart of the new California Republic. During this time, a young woman named Tandi was coming of age in an environment that perfectly prepared her for the leadership challenges that lay ahead. Tandi's childhood was spent in a community that embodied the best of post-war recovery, a place where democratic values were lived daily rather than merely discussed, where hard work and mutual aid created genuine prosperity, and where the traumatic memories of the Great War were balanced by hope for a better future. Her father Aradesh's leadership style provided her with a front-row seat to the practical application of democratic principles, showing her how consensus could be built and maintained even under pressure. The young woman's education was comprehensive in the way that only a small community could provide. She learned not just the formal subjects of reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also the practical skills of agriculture, trade, and diplomacy. Halls and Twee, Thacket, a hand of Tween, CTA 7B, Horned of Tween, 2, CTA 7 Don't Spoo Fandier, Horned of Tween, 2, CTA 7 Don't Spoo Fandier. She learned not just the formal subjects of reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also the practical skills of agriculture, trade, and diplomacy. More importantly, she absorbed the social skills that would prove crucial to her later political success: how to listen effectively, how to find common ground between opposing viewpoints, and how to inspire others to work towards shared goals. Tandi's formative years coincided with Shady Sands' transition from a simple farming settlement to a regional hub of trade and diplomacy. She witnessed firsthand the challenges and opportunities that came with growth, the need for more sophisticated governance structures, the delicate balance required to maintain community cohesion while welcoming newcomers, and the complex negotiations involved in building relationships with other settlements. The experiences of her youth instilled in Tandi a deep appreciation for both the fragility and the resilience of democratic institutions. She saw how easily misunderstandings could escalate into conflicts that threatened community harmony, but she also saw how patient dialogue and good faith negotiation could resolve even seemingly intractable disputes. These lessons would serve her well in the decades of leadership that lay ahead. As Tandi matured, her natural intelligence and empathetic nature made her a trusted voice in community discussions. Even before formally assuming leadership, she was participating in the collaborative decision-making processes that characterized Shady Sands' governance. Her perspective, shaped by both tradition and innovation, would prove crucial in guiding the community through the transitions that would eventually lead to the founding of the Republic. The growth and prosperity of Shady Sands did not go unnoticed by those who preferred to take by force what others had built through patient labor. As the settlement's reputation for wealth and successful governance spread throughout the wasteland, it increasingly attracted the attention of raider groups who saw easy pickings in what they mistakenly perceived as a soft target defended only by farmers and traders. The raids that periodically threatened Shady Sands served as crucial tests of the community's resolve and organizational capabilities. Each attack required rapid mobilization of the settlement's defenses, coordination between different groups within the community, and difficult decisions about resource allocation and risk management. These challenges strengthened the community's institutions while demonstrating the practical value of the democratic principles they had embraced. The response to raider threats revealed the sophisticated understanding of security that Shady Sands had developed. Rather than relying solely on passive defenses or reactive measures, the community invested in intelligence gathering, early warning systems, and proactive diplomacy with neighboring settlements. They understood that their security was intimately connected to the stability of the entire region, leading them to support efforts to address the root causes of raider activity rather than merely responding to its symptoms. The wildlife threats that persisted in the post-war world presented different but equally serious challenges. Or mutated creatures, driven by hunger or territorial instincts, could pose dangers to both people and livestock. The community's response to these threats demonstrated their capacity for adaptation and innovation, developing new techniques for dealing with dangers that had no pre-war precedent. Perhaps most importantly, the way Shady Sands dealt with these external threats reinforced the community values that would eventually characterize the entire republic. Rather than becoming militaristic or paranoid, they maintained their openness to traders and travelers while developing the defensive capabilities necessary to protect what they had built. They shared their security innovations with other settlements and participated in regional efforts to address common threats. The successful defense of their community against repeated challenges created a sense of confidence and competence that would prove crucial in the years ahead. Shady Sands had proven that democratic governance was not incompatible with effective action in crisis situations, and that a community organized around principles of cooperation and mutual aid could successfully defend itself against those who preferred violence and exploitation. Among the various threats that tested Shady Sands during its formative years, none were more significant than the systematic raids conducted by the Khn tribe. These attacks, more organized and persistent than typical raider harassment, represented a fundamental challenge to the settlement's existence and forced the community to confront basic questions about its values, capabilities, and future direction. The Khns approached warfare with a combination of tactical sophistication and brutal pragmatism that made them far more dangerous than the typical disorganized groups of opportunistic raiders that occasionally threatened the settlement. Their attacks were carefully planned, targeting specific resources or individuals, and designed to weaken the community's morale as much as its material capabilities. The psychological warfare was as important as the physical violence in creating an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty. The community's response to the Khn threat revealed both strengths and weaknesses in their approach to security and governance. The democratic decision-making processes that served them well in normal circumstances sometimes proved too slow and cumbersome when rapid response was required. Yet the same values that created these inefficiencies also generated a level of unity and determination that more authoritarian communities often lacked. The resolution of the Khn crisis, with crucial assistance from the Vault Dweller, provided important lessons that would influence Shady Sands' approach to external relations for decades to come. The experience demonstrated the value of having allies and the importance of maintaining relationships with potential partners who might provide assistance in times of crisis. It also showed the community that sometimes peaceful resolution of conflicts required the credible threat of force. The aftermath of the Khn raids saw significant changes in how Shady Sands organized its defenses and conducted its external relations. New institutions were created to coordinate intelligence gathering and threat assessment. Training programs were established to ensure that more community members could contribute effectively to defense efforts. Most importantly, diplomatic initiatives were launched to build stronger relationships with other settlements facing similar threats. The experience of successfully surviving and ultimately resolving the Khn crisis contributed to a growing sense of confidence and capability within Shady Sands. The community had faced a serious existential threat and emerged stronger and more unified. This experience would prove invaluable in the years ahead as the settlement took on increasingly ambitious projects and responsibilities that would eventually lead to the founding of the Republic. The intervention of the Vault Dweller in Shady Sands' struggle against the Khn raiders marked a turning point not just in the community's immediate security situation, but in their understanding of what was possible when communities and individuals worked together toward common goals. The assistance provided by this enigmatic figure demonstrated principles of mutual aid and cooperative problem-solving that would become central to the Republic's later development. The Vault Dweller's approach to helping Shady Sands was notable for its respect for the community's autonomy and decision-making processes. Rather than imposing solutions or taking control of the situation, they worked within existing structures and supported local leadership while contributing their unique skills and resources. This collaborative model provided a template for how external assistance could strengthen rather than undermine local governance. The technical and tactical knowledge that the vault dwellers shared with the community had immediate practical benefits but also longer-term educational value. Community members learned new approaches to problem-solving, strategic thinking, and resource management that they could apply to challenges beyond the immediate crisis. The transfer of knowledge was as important as the direct assistance in building the community's long-term capabilities. The example set by the vault dwellers' service to the community, without seeking personal gain or political power, reinforced the values of public service and civic duty that were already part of Shady Sands culture. Their willingness to risk personal safety for the benefit of people they had no previous connection to demonstrated the kind of commitment to the common good that would become a hallmark of Republic citizenship. The successful resolution of the Khn crisis through the vault dwellers' intervention also provided the community with its first real experience of effective coordination with external allies. This collaboration revealed the potential benefits of formal cooperation between settlements and began conversations about how such partnerships might be structured and maintained over time. Perhaps most significantly, the vault dwellers' role in organizing broader resistance to the Master's threat showed Shady Sands how their local challenges connected to larger regional and even continental patterns. This expanded perspective would prove crucial as the community began to envision itself as part of something larger than a single settlement, as a founding member of a new kind of political organization based on voluntary cooperation and shared democratic values. As Shady Sands established its security and developed its agricultural productivity, the community began to look beyond its immediate borders toward the opportunities and challenges of regional trade. The trading relationships that developed during this period would prove crucial not only to the settlement's economic prosperity, but also to the political connections that would eventually enable the formation of the Republic. The initial trading partnerships were based on simple complementary needs. Shady Sands' agricultural surplus could be exchanged for manufactured goods, tools, or specialized products that other communities could provide. These basic economic relationships created ongoing contact between settlements that might otherwise have remained isolated, fostering the personal relationships and mutual understanding that would prove essential for later political cooperation. The trading networks that developed with Shady Sands as a central hub began to create standardized practices and expectations that would eventually evolve into formal institutions. Questions of currency, contract enforcement, dispute resolution, and quality standards had to be addressed through negotiation and consensus building among the participating communities. These early experiments in inter-community governance provided valuable experience in the collaborative decision-making that would characterize the Republic. The success of Shady Sands as a trading center attracted merchants and entrepreneurs from throughout the region, creating a cosmopolitan atmosphere that enriched the community's cultural and intellectual life. Exposure to different approaches to governance, technology, and social organization stimulated discussions about best practices and potential improvements that kept the community's institutions dynamic and adaptive. The prosperity generated by trade enabled investments in infrastructure, education, and other public goods that improved quality of life for all residents, while also making the community more attractive to potential new members. The positive feedback loop between economic success and institutional development created momentum for growth that would sustain the community through the challenges of expansion and political evolution. Perhaps most importantly, the trading relationships established during this period created networks of mutual interest and interdependence that transcended the boundaries of individual settlements. Communities that traded with each other had incentives to maintain peace, resolve disputes peacefully, and coordinate responses to common threats. These practical bonds of economic cooperation would provide the foundation for the political relationships that would eventually formalize into the Republic. The introduction and development of Brahmin herding in the Shady Sands area represented more than just an economic innovation. It was a transformation that touched every aspect of community life and created new possibilities for growth and expansion. These hardy, two-headed cattle, adapted to the post-war environment in ways that made them ideally suited to the challenges of wasteland agriculture, became central to the community's identity and prosperity. The decision to invest in Brahmin herding required significant community discussion and resource allocation. The animals required substantial initial investment, specialized knowledge, and dedicated pasture land that might otherwise be used for crop production. The community's democratic decision-making processes were put to good use in weighing these trade-offs and building consensus around a long-term economic strategy that would pay dividends for generations. The practical challenges of Brahmin management led to innovations in community organization and resource sharing. Herding required coordination between multiple families and the development of systems for managing communal grazing lands. The solutions developed for these challenges provided models for cooperative resource management that would later be applied to other community assets and eventually influence republic policies on public lands and natural resources. The success of Brahmin herding created new forms of wealth and new opportunities for trade that expanded Shady Sands' economic relationships throughout the region. Brahmin meat, hides, and other products were in demand in communities that lacked the resources or expertise to maintain their own herds. The mobility of the animals also enabled new forms of long-distance trade, as herders could travel to distant markets, while their animals served as both transportation and merchandise. The cultural impact of Brahmin herding was as significant as its economic effects. The skills and knowledge required for successful animal husbandry created new forms of expertise and social status within the community. The seasonal rhythms of breeding, grazing, and marketing created new patterns of community life that complemented and enhanced the agricultural cycles that had previously defined the settlement's temporal framework. The expansion of Brahmin herding also influenced the community's relationship with the surrounding landscape. Herders developed intimate knowledge of grazing areas, water sources, and seasonal patterns that enhanced the community's overall understanding of their environment. This knowledge would prove valuable not just for economic purposes but also for security, as herders often provided early warning of potential threats approaching from the wasteland. The development of sustainable agriculture in the post-nuclear environment required innovations that went far beyond simply applying pre-war farming techniques to new conditions. Shady Sands became a center of agricultural experimentation and innovation, developing practices that would be adopted throughout the region and eventually codified in republic agricultural policies. The challenge of farming in irradiated soil led to the development of new crop varieties and cultivation techniques specifically adapted to post-war conditions. Through careful observation, systematic experimentation, and extensive collaboration with other agricultural communities, Shady Sands farmers developed strains of crops that could not only survive in the changed environment but actually thrive and produce substantial yields. Water management became a crucial focus of agricultural innovation, as the reliable sources that had supported pre-war agriculture were often contaminated or destroyed. The community invested heavily in irrigation systems, water purification technologies, and conservation techniques that maximized the productivity of their limited clean water resources. These innovations were shared freely with other communities, creating goodwill and establishing Shady Sands' reputation for technical expertise. Soil improvement and radiation remediation represented ongoing challenges that required long-term thinking and community-wide commitment. Techniques for reducing soil contamination, improving fertility, and maintaining productivity over time were developed through trial and error, with successes carefully documented and failures analyzed for lessons learned. This systematic approach to problem solving became a characteristic of Shady Sands culture that would influence many other aspects of community development. The success of agricultural innovations in Shady Sands created surplus production that could support population growth and economic diversification. Economic diversification. The community was able to feed not just its own residents but also traders, travelers, and new arrivals, creating a welcoming environment that attracted talented individuals who contributed to further innovation and growth. Perhaps most importantly, the agricultural innovations developed in Shady Sands demonstrated the power of cooperative problem-solving and knowledge sharing. The techniques that improved crop yields in one community could benefit settlements throughout the region, creating incentives for collaboration and mutual aid that would eventually extend beyond agriculture to encompass governance, security, and other areas of common concern. As Shady Sands matured from a desperate collection of survivors into a thriving settlement, the relationships between residents evolved in ways that would profoundly influence the character of the community and its approach to governance. The sense of shared purpose and mutual dependence that had emerged during the early years of struggle was refined and institutionalized into systems of cooperation that could adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining their essential character. The daily life of the community was organized around principles of mutual aid and shared responsibility that went beyond mere economic cooperation. Families helped each other during times of crisis, community projects were undertaken collectively, and individual success was understood to depend on the success of the community as a whole. These practices created social bonds that were as important as formal institutions in maintaining unity and effectiveness. The decision-making processes that governed community life became increasingly sophisticated while maintaining their democratic character. Regular assemblies provided forums for discussion of community issues with formal procedures for ensuring that all voices could be heard and all perspectives considered. Leadership roles were understood as service positions rather than sources of personal privilege, creating accountability that kept governance responsive to community needs. The success of cooperative approaches to problem-solving reinforced the community's commitment to democratic values and collaborative decision-making. Time and again, challenges that might have divided or weakened other communities were successfully addressed through patient dialogue, creative compromise, and shared implementation of agreed-upon solutions. These experiences built confidence in the community's ability to govern itself effectively. The culture of cooperation that developed in Shady Sands extended beyond the settlement's borders to encompass relationships with neighboring communities. The same principles that governed internal community life, respect for autonomy, commitment to mutual aid, and preference for peaceful resolution of disputes, characterized the settlement's external relations and created a reputation for fairness and reliability that would prove crucial in later political developments. As the community grew and prospered, the cooperative spirit that had enabled its success began to attract attention from other settlements facing similar challenges. Delegations would arrive, seeking advice on governance, agricultural techniques, and conflict resolution. These interactions not only spread the influence of Shady Sands innovations but also created personal relationships and institutional connections that would eventually enable the formal political cooperation that would become the new California Republic. The transition of leadership from Aradesh to his daughter Tandi represented more than just a change in personnel. It marked the evolution of Shady Sands from a successful local settlement to a community with regional ambitions and the institutional sophistication necessary to achieve them. Tandi's assumption of leadership came at a crucial moment when the settlement was poised to take on larger responsibilities and face more complex challenges. Tandi's path to leadership was neither automatic nor uncontested, despite her father's prominence and her own demonstrated capabilities. The democratic traditions of Shady Sands required that any leader earn the trust and support of the community through demonstrated competence and commitment to shared values. Tandi's gradual assumption of greater responsibilities, from participation in community councils to leadership of specific projects, provided opportunities for residents to observe her judgment, integrity, and effectiveness. The qualities that made Tandi an effective leader were perfectly suited to the challenges facing Shady Sands in this period of growth and expansion. Her combination of visionary thinking and practical problem-solving enabled her to articulate ambitious goals while developing realistic plans for achieving them. Her diplomatic skills, honed through years of participation in inter-community negotiations, were essential for managing the complex relationships that would be required for regional political cooperation. Tandi's leadership style built upon the collaborative traditions established by her father while adapting to the more complex circumstances of a larger and more diverse community. She understood that effective governance required balancing competing interests and perspectives, building consensus around common goals, and maintaining unity while encouraging innovation and adaptation. Her approach to leadership would become a model for republic governance at all levels. The timing of Tandi's assumption of leadership coincided with growing discussions throughout the region about the potential benefits of formal political cooperation between communities. Her early initiatives focused on strengthening existing relationships with neighboring settlements while exploring new possibilities for coordination and mutual aid. These efforts would prove crucial in building the foundation for what would eventually become the Republic. Perhaps most importantly, Tandi brought to her leadership role a vision of what the region could become if its communities worked together systematically rather than merely cooperating on an ad hoc basis. Her ability to articulate this vision in compelling terms while demonstrating practical steps toward its realization would prove crucial in building the support necessary for the ambitious project of creating the new California Republic. Tandi's vision for California extended far beyond the prosperity of any single settlement to encompass a transformed region where communities could achieve together what none could accomplish alone. Her understanding of the potential for regional cooperation was informed by years of observation of successful inter-community collaboration, combined with a deep appreciation for the democratic values that had enabled such cooperation to flourish. The foundation of Tandi's vision was the recognition that the challenges facing individual settlements, security threats, resource limitations, infrastructure needs, and economic development opportunities were regional in scope and required coordinated responses. No single community, no matter how successful, could address these challenges effectively in isolation. The solution lay in systematic cooperation based on shared principles and mutual benefit. Tandi's approach to building support for regional unification was characterized by patience, pragmatism, and respect for local autonomy. Rather than proposing a top-down imposition of uniform governance, she advocated for a federal system that would preserve community self-determination while enabling coordination on issues of common concern. This approach addressed the fears of communities that worried about losing their independence while maximizing the benefits of cooperation. The economic arguments for unification were compelling and formed a central part of Tandi's advocacy. A unified California could create standardized currency and trading systems, coordinate infrastructure development, and negotiate from a position of strength with external trading partners. The efficiencies gained through coordination could benefit all participating communities while creating new opportunities for growth and prosperity. The security benefits of unification were equally important, as individual communities remained vulnerable to threats that a coordinated regional response could address effectively. Shared intelligence, coordinated defense planning, and mutual aid agreements could provide security benefits that would be impossible for isolated settlements to achieve independently. The recent experience with the Master's threat had demonstrated both the danger of external enemies and the power of coordinated resistance. Perhaps most importantly, Tandi's vision emphasized the moral and philosophical case for unification based on shared democratic values and commitment to human dignity. The communities that would form the Republic shared fundamental beliefs about the importance of individual rights, representative governance, and the rule of law. Formal political union would enable these communities to advance these values more effectively while providing a model for other regions struggling with post-war reconstruction. The political philosophy that would guide the formation and development of the new California Republic was not created in isolation, but emerged from the practical experience of communities that had successfully implemented democratic governance in the challenging circumstances of the post-war world. This philosophy combined respect for pre-war democratic traditions with innovations adapted to the realities of life in the wasteland. At the heart of the Republic's political philosophy was the principle of consent of the governing traits. the idea that legitimate political authority derived from the freely given agreement of citizens rather than from forced tradition or claimed divine right. This principle had been tested and proven in the day-to-day governance of settlements like Shady Sands, where leaders maintained authority only as long as they retained the trust and support of their communities. The federal structure that emerged from discussions of regional unification reflected a sophisticated understanding of the balance between central coordination and local autonomy. The Republic would have authority to act on behalf of all member communities in areas of common concern, including defense, trade regulation, and infrastructure development, while preserving local control over issues that directly affected daily life in individual settlements. Representative democracy was chosen as the mechanism for expressing popular will at the regional level, with electoral systems designed to ensure that all communities, regardless of size or wealth, could participate meaningfully in republic governance. The careful attention to electoral procedures and representation reflected lessons learned from the successful operation of democratic institutions at the local level. The commitment to individual rights and the rule of law represented both philosophical conviction and practical necessity. Communities that had survived and prospered in the post-war world had done so by protecting the rights and dignity of their members while maintaining fair and consistent systems of justice. These principles would be essential for maintaining unity and legitimacy as the Republic grew and faced new challenges. Perhaps most importantly, the Republic's political philosophy emphasized the dynamic and adaptive nature of democratic institutions. The system was designed to evolve and improve over time as circumstances changed and new challenges emerged. This flexibility, grounded in unchanging principles but expressed through evolving institutions, would prove crucial to the Republic's long-term success and survival. The decision to explicitly embrace and adapt pre-war American democratic ideals in the formation of the new California Republic was both a practical choice and a symbolic statement about the kind of society the founders hoped to create. This adoption was not mere nostalgia, but a thoughtful selection of principles and institutions that had proven their worth over time and could be adapted to post-war circumstances. The appeal of pre-war American ideals lay partly in their familiarity and legitimacy among wastelanders who maintained cultural memories of the old world. Many of the settlements that would join the Republic had preserved fragments of American political tradition through oral history, salvaged documents, and institutional practices. Building on these existing foundations was more practical than creating entirely new systems from scratch. The specific ideals that were emphasized in Republic formation included representative democracy, federalism, individual rights, and the rule of law. These principles had demonstrated their effectiveness in the pre-war period and seemed well suited to the challenges of post-war governance. The founders were careful to adapt these ideals to contemporary circumstances rather than attempting literal recreation of pre-war institutions. The process of adopting pre-war American ideals involved extensive discussion and debate about which elements of the old system should be preserved, which should be modified, and which should be discarded entirely. This process of selection and adaptation was itself democratic, involving representatives from all participating communities in decisions about the fundamental character of their new government. The symbolic power of connecting the Republic to pre-war American traditions was as important as the practical benefits. This connection provided a sense of continuity with the past that helped legitimize the new government while also articulating aspirations for the future. The Republic was not just another post-war settlement but the conscious heir to a great democratic tradition. The implementation of pre-war American ideals in the Republic's founding documents and institutions was carefully balanced with innovations necessary for post-war conditions. The result was a system that honored the best of the old world while addressing the realities of the new, creating a framework for governance that could adapt and evolve as circumstances required. The drafting of the new California Republic's first constitution represented the culmination of years of discussion, negotiation, and careful planning among the communities that would form the new government. Would form the new government. This document would establish not just the structure of republic institutions, but also the principles that would guide their operation and evolution over time. The Constitutional Convention brought together representatives from all participating communities in a process that was itself a demonstration of the democratic principles that would govern the republic. Delegates engaged in extensive debate about fundamental questions of governmental structure, individual rights, and the proper relationship between federal and local authority. The resulting document reflected genuine compromise and consensus building rather than imposition by any single faction. The governmental structure established by the Constitution was designed to balance effectiveness with accountability, enabling coordinated action on regional issues while preserving local autonomy and preventing the concentration of power that could threaten democratic governance. The separation of powers between executive, legislative, and judicial branches provided checks and balances that would protect against tyranny while ensuring that government could function effectively. The federal structure created by the Constitution was carefully calibrated to address the specific circumstances of post-war California while incorporating lessons learned from pre-war American experience. The division of authority between republic and local governments was designed to maximize the benefits of coordination while preserving the community autonomy that had been essential to successful post-war recovery. The Bill of Rights incorporated into the Constitution reflected both the influence of pre-war American traditions and the specific experiences of post-war communities. Rights to due process, free speech, and democratic participation were complemented by protections against the specific forms of oppression and exploitation that had threatened wasteland communities during the difficult years of recovery. The amendment process established by the Constitution demonstrated the founders' understanding that governmental institutions must be able to adapt and evolve over time. The procedures for constitutional change were designed to ensure that modifications reflected genuine consensus while preventing hasty or ill-considered alterations to fundamental principles. The success of the new California Republic's formation depended heavily on the diplomatic groundwork that had been laid through years of patient relationship building between Shady Sands and other settlements throughout the region. Tandi's leadership in these diplomatic efforts was crucial in creating the trust and mutual understanding necessary for political unification. The diplomatic approach developed by Tandi and her advisors was characterized by respect for the autonomy and dignity of potential partner communities. Rather than attempting to pressure or coerce settlements into joining the Republic, the diplomatic strategy focused on demonstrating the benefits of cooperation while addressing legitimate concerns about independence and self-determination. The negotiations leading to Republic formation involved extensive consultation with community leaders and citizens to ensure that decisions about joining reflected genuine popular support rather than elite preferences. This participatory approach to diplomacy was time-consuming but essential for creating the broad-based legitimacy that would be necessary for effective governance. The diplomatic process also involved careful attention to the specific concerns and interests of each potential member community. Some settlements worried about losing their cultural identity, others feared economic disadvantage, and still others questioned whether their voices would be heard in a larger political system. Addressing these concerns required creativity, flexibility, and genuine commitment to inclusive governance. The success of early diplomatic efforts was measured not just by formal agreements, but by the quality of relationships established between communities and their leaders. The personal trust and mutual respect developed through the diplomatic process would prove crucial in navigating the inevitable challenges and disagreements that would arise during the Republic's early years. Perhaps most importantly, the diplomatic approach used in Republic formation established precedents and traditions that would guide the Republic's future expansion and international relations. The emphasis on voluntary cooperation, mutual benefit, and respect for self-determination would become hallmarks of Republic diplomacy throughout its subsequent development. The inclusion of the hub in the new California Republic represented a crucial milestone in the new government's development, bringing not just a major population center, but also the economic infrastructure and commercial networks that would be essential for Republic prosperity. The hub's integration demonstrated the Republic's ability to accommodate diverse communities while benefiting from their unique contributions. The hub's significance to Republic formation went far beyond its size and population, important as those were. As the major trading center for the region, the hub controlled crucial commercial networks that connected communities throughout California and beyond. Its inclusion in the Republic provided access to these networks while also ensuring that trade relationships would operate within a stable political framework. The negotiations surrounding the hub's integration into the Republic were particularly complex due to the community's diverse population and established commercial interests. The settlement's leaders needed assurance that Republic membership would enhance rather than constrain their economic opportunities, while also addressing concerns about political representation and autonomy. The economic benefits of the hub's integration were immediately apparent to all Republic members. The expanded trading networks, improved commercial infrastructure, and enhanced access to manufactured goods and services created opportunities for growth and prosperity that individual settlements could never have achieved independently. The hub's expertise in finance and commerce also contributed to the development of Republic-wide economic institutions. The hub's political integration required careful attention to representation and governance structures to ensure that the community's voice would be heard effectively within Republic institutions. The solutions developed for these challenges helped establish precedents for accommodating diversity within the federal system that would prove valuable as the Republic continued to grow. Perhaps most importantly, the successful integration of the hub demonstrated the Republic's capacity to unite communities with different economic bases, social structures, and political traditions under a common government that respected their diversity while enabling them to work together toward shared goals. The development of systematic trade routes and caravan networks under Republic auspices represented one of the new government's most significant early achievements, creating economic infrastructure that would support prosperity and growth throughout the region while also strengthening the political bonds between member communities. The establishment of regular caravan routes required coordination between multiple communities to ensure security, standardize procedures, and maintain the infrastructure necessary for safe and efficient travel. This coordination was one of the first major tests of the Republic's ability to undertake projects that benefited all members while requiring contributions from each according to their capabilities. The security challenges involved in protecting caravan routes led to some of the Republic's earliest military initiatives, as coordinated patrols and escort services were organized to protect traders from raiders and other wasteland threats. These security operations provided practical experience in inter-community military cooperation while also demonstrating the tangible benefits of Republic membership. The economic impact of improved trade networks was substantial and immediately apparent. Communities could access goods and services that had previously been unavailable or prohibitively expensive, while also finding new markets for their own products. The increased economic activity generated by expanded trade created prosperity that benefited all Republic members. The standardization of weights, measures, currency, and trading practices that accompanied caravan network development represented important steps toward true economic integration. These seemingly technical innovations had profound political implications, as they created shared systems and expectations that strengthened the bonds between Republic communities. Hived into Rusution, so fordum bull full fordum tut. Ye to pull full bull full. Perhaps most importantly, the caravan networks served as channels for communication and cultural exchange that complemented their economic functions. Traders carried news, ideas, and innovations throughout the Republic, creating a sense of shared identity and common purpose that transcended the boundaries of individual settlements. As the new California Republic gained confidence and experience in its early years, the question of territorial expansion became a central focus of political discussion and policy development. The approach that emerged reflected the democratic values and collaborative spirit that had guided the Republic's formation, emphasizing voluntary association and mutual benefit rather than conquest or coercion. The peaceful expansion philosophy adopted by the Republic was rooted in practical as well as moral considerations. The communities that had formed the Republic had succeeded through cooperation and mutual aid rather than military might, and they understood that sustainable growth required the willing participation of new members rather than their reluctant submission to superior force. The Republic's approach to expansion emphasized the benefits of membership minus security, expanded economic opportunities, access to Republic services and infrastructure, and participation in democratic governance while respecting the autonomy and self-determination of potential member communities. This approach required patience and diplomatic skill but created stronger and more lasting bonds than conquest could achieve. The expansion process typically began with informal relationships, trade partnerships, mutual aid agreements, and collaborative responses to common threats. These relationships allowed communities to experience the benefits of cooperation with the Republic while maintaining their independence and observing how Republic institutions actually functioned in practice. Formal invitation to join the Republic usually came only after extensive consultation and relationship building had demonstrated mutual compatibility and benefit. The decision-making process within potential member communities was respected and supported, with Republic representatives providing information and answering questions but avoiding pressure or interference in local democratic processes. The success of the peaceful expansion philosophy was demonstrated by the enthusiasm with which most communities embraced Republic membership once they had experienced its benefits. The voluntary nature of the expansion process created stronger commitment to Republic values and institutions than forced incorporation could have achieved, contributing to the stability and legitimacy that would characterize the Republic throughout its subsequent development. The integration of new settlements into the new California Republic required sophisticated diplomatic processes that could accommodate the diverse circumstances, concerns, and aspirations of communities throughout the region. The Republic's success in this area reflected both the skill of its diplomats and the flexibility of its institutions in adapting to new challenges. Each community that considered joining the Republic brought its own unique history, culture, and political traditions that needed to be respected and accommodated within the federal framework. The integration process required careful attention to these differences while identifying common ground and shared interests that could form the basis for productive partnership. The diplomatic approach developed by the Republic emphasized extensive consultation with all segments of potential member communities, not just their formal leaders. Town halls, public meetings, and informal discussions ensured that ordinary citizens had opportunities to learn about the Republic, ask questions, and express their views about potential membership. The integration process also involved practical negotiations about how new communities would fit into existing Republic institutions and structures. Questions of representation, taxation, service obligations, and local autonomy required creative solutions that balanced federal needs with local preferences and capabilities. The Republic's diplomats worked to address specific concerns and objections raised by potential member communities, often developing innovative solutions that would benefit the entire Republic. The flexibility and responsiveness demonstrated in these negotiations contributed to the Republic's reputation for fairness and good faith that facilitated future expansion efforts. The successful integration of diverse communities strengthened the Republic's institutions by forcing them to adapt and evolve to accommodate new circumstances. The lessons learned from each integration process were applied to subsequent expansion efforts, creating increasingly sophisticated and effective approaches to building an inclusive and diverse federal system. The creation of the NCR Rangers represented one of the Republic's most successful institutional innovations, establishing an elite force that could address security challenges throughout the Republic's territory while embodying the values and traditions that defined the new nation. The Rangers would become legendary figures whose reputation extended far beyond the Republic's borders. The decision to create the Rangers emerged from recognition that the Republic's expanding territory and diverse challenges required specialized law enforcement and security capabilities that went beyond what local communities or conventional military forces could provide. The Rangers were designed to be highly trained, mobile, and adaptable forces capable of operating independently in difficult circumstances. The recruitment and training of Rangers emphasized not just combat skills and tactical expertise, but also the judgment, integrity, and commitment to justice that were essential for representing the Republic in its most challenging situations. Rangers were expected to serve as ambassadors of Republic values as well as enforcement agents, requiring exceptional personal qualities and extensive preparation. The Rangers' broad mandate included law enforcement, investigation of federal crimes, counterintelligence activities, and frontier security operations. This diverse range of responsibilities required Rangers to be skilled in diplomacy and negotiation as well as combat, capable of resolving conflicts peacefully when possible while being prepared for decisive action when necessary. The organizational structure of the Rangers emphasized decentralized command and individual initiative within a framework of clear principles and standards. Rangers often operated alone or in small teams far from direct supervision, requiring exceptional personal discipline and adherence to Republic values and procedures. The Rangers' reputation for effectiveness, integrity, and commitment to justice made them powerful symbols of Republic ideals and aspirations. Their presence in troubled areas often had a calming effect that went beyond their actual enforcement capabilities, demonstrating the moral authority that effective democratic institutions could command even in the chaotic conditions of the post-war world. As the new California Republic expanded its territory and influence, it inevitably came into conflict with various hostile groups that preferred violence and exploitation to the cooperative and democratic values that the Republic represented. These early conflicts tested the Republic's military capabilities while also clarifying its values and commitment to protecting innocent communities. The raider groups that periodically threatened Republic territory were not monolithic, but included various organizations with different motivations, capabilities, and approaches to violence. Some were desperate survivors who had turned to predation as a means of survival, while others were organized criminal enterprises that systematically exploited the weak and vulnerable for profit. The Republic's response to raider threats was characterized by a combination of defensive measures, proactive operations, and efforts to address root causes of the violence. Military action was undertaken when necessary to protect Republic citizens and territory, but it was always accompanied by diplomatic initiatives aimed at offering alternatives to violence and creating conditions for lasting peace. The development of effective anti-raider strategies required coordination between military forces, law enforcement agencies, and civilian authorities at both local and federal levels. This coordination provided valuable experience in inter-agency cooperation, while also demonstrating the benefits of the Republic's federal structure in addressing complex regional challenges. The Republic's approach to dealing with hostile factions was guided by principles of proportionality, discrimination between combatants and non-combatants, and commitment to the rule of law even in conflict situations. These principles sometimes made military operations more difficult, but were essential for maintaining the moral authority and popular support that the Republic required for long-term success. The successful resolution of early conflicts with raiders and hostile factions enhanced the Republic's reputation for both strength and justice, demonstrating that democratic governments could effectively protect their citizens while maintaining their values. This reputation would prove valuable in attracting new members and deterring future threats. The creation of a unified military structure for the new California Republic required balancing the need for effective defense with the democratic values and federal principles that guided republic governance. The resulting military institutions reflected careful attention to both practical military requirements and constitutional limitations on the use of force. The Republic's military structure was designed around the principle of civilian control, with clear subordination of military authority to elected political leadership. This principle was essential for maintaining democratic governance while also ensuring that military capabilities could be effectively employed when necessary for Republic defense. The federal military was organized to complement rather than replace local defense forces, with Republic units focusing on threats that exceeded local capabilities or crossed jurisdictional boundaries. This approach preserved local autonomy while providing the coordination and specialized capabilities necessary for regional defense. The recruitment and training of Republic military forces emphasized both professional competence and commitment to Republic values and principles. Soldiers were expected to serve as representatives of the Republic as well as defenders, requiring extensive education in the laws of war, rules of engagement, and the political principles that they were sworn to protect. The command structure of Republic military forces was designed to ensure effective coordination while preventing the concentration of power that could threaten democratic institutions. Clear chains of command, defined roles and responsibilities, and regular rotation of command assignments helped maintain both effectiveness and accountability. The integration of former local defense forces into the unified Republic military required careful attention to existing traditions, loyalties, and capabilities. Ganobudi, UD. The process of military unification provided valuable lessons in managing institutional change while preserving valuable elements of existing organizations and cultures. The establishment of a unified currency and integrated economic system for the new California Republic represented one of the most complex and significant challenges facing the new government. The success of these efforts would be crucial for creating the economic foundation necessary to support Republic growth and prosperity. The creation of Republic currency required addressing fundamental questions about monetary policy, exchange rates with existing local currencies, and the backing that would give the new money credibility and stability. The solutions developed reflected both economic theory and practical political considerations about maintaining public confidence in Republic institutions. The transition from diverse local currencies and barter systems to a unified Republic monetary system required extensive coordination and careful timing to avoid economic disruption. Educational campaigns helped citizens understand the new system, while gradual implementation allowed for adjustments and refinements based on practical experience. The Republic's economic policies were designed to promote growth and prosperity while maintaining the competitive markets and entrepreneurial spirit that had characterized the member communities. Government intervention in the economy was limited to areas where market failures or coordination problems required collective action. The integration of local economies into a Republic-wide system created new opportunities for specialization, trade, and investment that benefited all members. Communities could focus on their comparative advantages while accessing broader markets for their products and sources of supply for their needs. The development of Republic banking and financial institutions provided services that had been unavailable to most wasteland communities, while also creating mechanisms for coordinating economic policy and managing the public finances necessary for Republic operations. The transformation of Shady Sands from a modest farming settlement into the capital city of the new California Republic represented both the opportunities and challenges that came with success and growth. The changes that occurred during this period would influence the character of the Republic and its institutions for generations to come. The population growth that accompanied Shady Sands' role as Republic capital created new demands for housing, infrastructure, and public services that tested the community's ability to adapt and expand while maintaining its essential character. The solutions developed for these challenges provided models for managing urban growth throughout the Republic. The economic development that came with capital status attracted businesses, professionals, and entrepreneurs from throughout the Republic and beyond, creating a cosmopolitan atmosphere that enriched the city's cultural and intellectual life. This diversity brought new ideas and perspectives that influenced Republic policies and institutions. The physical expansion of Shady Sands required careful planning to preserve the agricultural land and natural resources that had been essential to the community's success while accommodating the urban development necessary for its new role. The balance achieved between growth and conservation would influence Republic policies on land use and environmental protection. The political challenges of serving as both a local community and the seat of federal government required innovations in governance that separated city and republic functions while maintaining coordination and cooperation. These institutional arrangements provided valuable experience in managing complex political relationships within the federal system. The cultural impact of Shady Sands' transformation was as significant as its political and economic effects. The city became a symbol of Republic achievement and aspiration, demonstrating that post-war communities could not only survive but prosper and grow into something greater than their founders had dared to imagine. The development of transportation infrastructure represented one of the new California Republic's most ambitious and successful early undertakings, creating the physical connections that would bind together diverse communities while enabling the economic and social integration necessary for effective federal governance. The Republic's approach to infrastructure development emphasized coordination between federal planning and local implementation, with central authorities identifying strategic priorities while local communities contributed resources and labor according to their capabilities. This approach ensured that infrastructure projects served both regional and local needs while building support for Republic institutions. Road building represented the most visible and immediately beneficial form of infrastructure development, connecting previously isolated communities and enabling the expansion of trade, travel, and communication throughout Republic territory. The improvement of transportation networks had immediate economic benefits while also strengthening political and social bonds between communities. The technical challenges of road construction in the post-war environment required innovations in engineering and materials that drew upon both pre-war knowledge and contemporary adaptations to changed conditions. The solutions developed for these challenges were shared throughout the Republic, contributing to the development of technical expertise and institutional capabilities. The economic impact of improved infrastructure was substantial and immediately apparent, as reduced transportation costs and improved travel times created new opportunities for trade and economic development. Communities that had previously been isolated from major markets could now participate fully in the Republic's expanding economy. The political significance of infrastructure development was as important as its economic benefits. Successful completion of major infrastructure projects demonstrated the Republic's capability to undertake ambitious collective endeavors while providing tangible evidence of the benefits of federal cooperation to citizens throughout the territory. The presidency of Tandi would come to define not only the early development of the new California Republic, but also the very character of democratic governance in the post-war world. Her remarkable longevity in office, serving for over 60 years until her death in 2042, provided the stability and continuity that allowed the Republic to mature from an experimental federation into a major regional power. Tandi's extended tenure was not the result of authoritarian consolidation of power, but rather reflected the genuine trust and confidence that Republic citizens placed in her leadership. Her regular re-election by substantial margins demonstrated the effectiveness of her governance and the satisfaction of voters with the direction of Republic development. The democratic process that sustained her presidency also ensured that it remained accountable and responsive to public needs. The stability provided by Tandi's long presidency enabled the Republic to undertake ambitious long-term projects that would have been impossible under frequently changing leadership. Infrastructure development, educational initiatives, and institutional reforms could be planned and implemented over decades rather than being subject to the disruptions that might have accompanied regular changes in administration. Tandi's leadership style evolved and adapted throughout her long presidency, reflecting both her own growth as a leader and the changing needs of the Republic as it expanded and matured. Her ability to learn from experience and adjust her approaches to new circumstances was crucial in maintaining effective governance as the Republic faced increasingly complex challenges. The precedents established during Tandi's presidency in areas such as federal-state relations, economic policy, and international diplomacy would influence Republic governance long after her death. Her approach to leadership, emphasizing consultation, consensus building, and respect for democratic institutions, became the standard against which subsequent presidents would be measured. Perhaps most importantly, Tandi's presidency demonstrated that democratic governance could be both effective and stable in the challenging circumstances of the post-war world. Her success provided a model for other regions attempting to rebuild democratic institutions, while also inspiring confidence among Republic citizens in their own political system. Under Tandi's leadership, the new California Republic expanded far beyond its original boundaries to encompass much of what had once been the state of California and portions of neighboring regions. This expansion was achieved primarily through the same peaceful methods that had characterized the Republic's formation: voluntary association based on mutual benefit rather than conquest or coercion. The expansion that occurred during Tandi's presidency was driven by the demonstrated success of Republic institutions and the tangible benefits that membership provided to communities throughout the region. As the Republic's reputation for effective governance, economic prosperity, and fair treatment spread, more communities sought to join the federal system. Each major expansion required careful negotiation and planning to ensure that new territories could be successfully integrated into the Republic's existing institutions and structures. Tandi's diplomatic skills and patient approach to relationship building were crucial in managing these complex processes while maintaining the consensus necessary for effective governance. The geographic scope of Republic expansion during this period was remarkable, stretching from the Pacific coast to the Mojave Desert and from the Central Valley to Baja California. This vast territory encompassed diverse landscapes, climates, and resources that provided the Republic with economic strength and strategic depth. The integration of new territories into the Republic required ongoing innovation in federal governance as the diversity of conditions and communities challenged existing institutions to adapt and evolve. The solutions developed for these challenges strengthened the Republic's capacity for inclusive governance while providing valuable experience for future expansion. The successful management of territorial expansion during Tandi's presidency established the Republic as the dominant political force in the region, while also demonstrating the viability of democratic federalism as a model for post-war reconstruction. The precedents established during this period would influence expansion efforts for generations to come. The maturation of the new California Republic's democratic institutions during Tandi's presidency represented one of the most significant achievements of the early post-war period, creating governmental structures that could adapt and evolve while maintaining their essential democratic character. These institutions would serve as models for democratic development throughout the wasteland. The evolution of Republic institutions was guided by practical experience rather than abstract theory, with adjustments and refinements based on what worked effectively in the challenging circumstances of post-war governance. This pragmatic approach ensured that institutions remained relevant and effective while preserving democratic principles and values. The separation of powers between executive, legislative, and judicial branches was refined and strengthened during this period, with clear definitions of roles and responsibilities that prevented the concentration of power while enabling effective coordination and cooperation. The system of checks and balances proved effective in maintaining accountability and preventing abuse of authority. The federal structure of the Republic was continuously adapted to accommodate new territories and changing circumstances while preserving the balance between central coordination and local autonomy that had been essential to the Republic's success. The solutions developed for federal-state relations provided models that would be studied and emulated by other regions. The development of a professional civil service during Tandi's presidency provided the administrative capacity necessary for effective governance while maintaining the political responsiveness that democratic accountability required. The merit-based hiring and promotion systems that emerged helped ensure competent administration while preventing corruption and favoritism. The expansion and strengthening of Republic courts during this period created a legal system that could effectively protect individual rights and resolve disputes while adapting to the unique challenges of post-war conditions. The development of constitutional law and legal precedents provided a foundation for the rule of law that would endure long after the specific circumstances of their creation had changed. The economic prosperity that characterized the new California Republic during Tandi's presidency was not accidental but resulted from deliberate policies and institutional arrangements that encouraged productive activity while maintaining the social cohesion necessary for democratic governance. This prosperity created a positive feedback loop that attracted new citizens and resources while enabling further investment in growth and development. The Republic's economic policies during this period emphasized creating conditions for sustainable growth rather than government direction of economic activity. Support for education, infrastructure development, and the rule of law provided the foundation for private enterprise and innovation, while maintaining competitive markets that rewarded efficiency and service to consumers. The development of Republic-wide markets during Tandi's presidency created opportunities for specialization and trade that benefited all regions while encouraging the efficient use of resources and the development of comparative advantages. The standardization of currency, weights, and measures facilitated commerce while reducing transaction costs and improving economic efficiency. The population growth that accompanied economic prosperity was managed through careful attention to infrastructure development, urban planning, and resource management that ensured that growth contributed to rather than detracted from quality of life. The Republic's ability to accommodate large-scale immigration while maintaining social cohesion demonstrated the strength of its institutions and values. The agricultural development that occurred during this period transformed the Republic from a collection of subsistence communities into a major food producer capable of supporting large urban populations while maintaining export capacity. The improvements in agricultural techniques and infrastructure created prosperity that spread throughout the economy. The industrial development that began during Tandi's presidency laid the foundation for the Republic's future economic growth, while providing employment opportunities that attracted skilled workers and entrepreneurs from throughout the wasteland. The balance between agricultural and industrial development created a diverse and resilient economy. The new California Republic's approach to scientific and technological development during Tandi's presidency was characterized by a balance between preserving valuable pre-war knowledge and encouraging innovation adapted to post-war conditions. This approach created significant advances in areas crucial to Republic development while maintaining the cautious attitude toward dangerous technologies that wasteland experience had shown to be necessary. The Republic's educational institutions played a crucial role in preserving and transmitting scientific knowledge while also training new generations of researchers and technicians who could contribute to continued advancement. The emphasis on literacy and technical education created a skilled workforce that could support increasingly sophisticated economic and technological development. Medical advances during this period significantly improved public health and life expectancy throughout the Republic, with innovations in treating radiation sickness, improving surgical techniques, and developing new medicines adapted to post-war conditions. These improvements not only enhanced quality of life, but also supported population growth and economic development. Agricultural science received particular attention during Tandi's presidency, with systematic research into crop varieties, soil improvement, and farming techniques that increased productivity while reducing environmental impact. The agricultural surpluses generated by these improvements supported urban development while providing trade goods that enhanced the Republic's economic position. Engineering and infrastructure development benefited from both recovered pre-war knowledge and innovative solutions to post-war challenges. The construction techniques, materials science, and project management capabilities developed during this period enabled the Republic to undertake increasingly ambitious infrastructure projects that supported continued growth and development. The Republic's approach to dangerous technologies during this period established important precedents for balancing innovation with safety. While encouraging beneficial technological development, Republic institutions maintained careful oversight of research that might pose risks to public safety or security, reflecting the hard-won wisdom of communities that had experienced the consequences of uncontrolled technological development. The urban development that occurred throughout the new California Republic during Tandi's presidency represented a transformation from the scattered settlements of the early post-war period to substantial cities that could support diverse populations and sophisticated economic activity. This urbanization was carefully managed to preserve the democratic values and community spirit that had characterized the Republic's formation. The growth of existing settlements into major cities required extensive planning and investment in infrastructure, housing, and public services that tested the Republic's institutional capabilities while providing valuable experience in managing complex urban challenges. The solutions developed for these challenges provided models that were applied throughout the Republic. The establishment of new cities in strategic locations throughout Republic territory was coordinated with economic development initiatives and transportation planning to ensure that urban growth supported rather than conflicted with regional development goals. This integrated approach to urban planning created efficient and livable cities that enhanced rather than diminished quality of life. The architectural and urban design principles that emerged during this period reflected both practical considerations and cultural values, creating cities that were functionally efficient while also serving as symbols of Republic achievement and aspiration. The public buildings, parks, and civic spaces that were created during this period demonstrated the Republic's commitment to serving citizen needs and fostering community life. The governance structures developed for Republic cities balanced local autonomy with coordination of regional policies and services. The municipal institutions that emerged provided effective local governance while maintaining integration with Republic-wide systems for law enforcement, education, and economic regulation. The cultural flowering that occurred during Tandi's presidency was as significant as the Republic's political and economic achievements, creating a distinctive identity that bound together diverse communities while preserving their individual traditions and contributions. The Wine Ball. This cultural development helped transform the Republic from a practical alliance into a genuine nation with shared values and aspirations. The educational institutions that developed throughout the Republic during this period served not only to transmit practical knowledge and skills, but also to foster a sense of shared identity and common purpose among citizens from diverse backgrounds. Schools became centers of community life, where democratic values were learned and practiced as well as taught. The arts and literature that flourished during Tandi's presidency reflected both the challenges and achievements of post-war life, while also expressing the hopes and dreams of a people rebuilding civilization. Writers, artists, and musicians drew inspiration from both pre-war traditions and contemporary experiences to create works that captured the Republic's unique character. The development of Republic-wide celebrations and civic traditions created shared experiences that strengthened the bonds between citizens and communities throughout the territory. These celebrations honored both historical achievements and contemporary successes while also providing opportunities for citizens to participate actively in community life. The preservation and promotion of local traditions within the broader republic framework demonstrated the federal system's capacity to unite diverse communities without suppressing their distinctive characteristics. This cultural diversity enriched the republic while also providing resilience against the homogenizing pressures that might have threatened community identity. The emergence of distinctive republic symbols, flags, and ceremonies provided visible expressions of shared identity that complemented the institutional structures of democratic governance. These cultural symbols helped create emotional bonds between citizens and their government while also representing republic values to the outside world. Tandi's approach to conflict resolution, both within the Republic and in its relations with external powers, established precedents for peaceful problem-solving that would influence Republic policies for generations. Her preference for negotiation over force reflected both personal conviction and practical understanding of the costs of violence in a world still recovering from devastating war. The internal conflicts that arose within the Republic as it grew and diversified were addressed through institutional mechanisms that emphasized dialogue, compromise, and mutual respect, rather than the imposition of solutions by force or authority. These peaceful resolution processes strengthened democratic institutions while maintaining the unity necessary for effective governance. The mediation and arbitration systems that developed during Tandi's presidency provided alternatives to both violence and litigation for resolving disputes between individuals, communities, and regions. These systems were designed to be accessible, fair, and efficient, while also educating participants in democratic values and cooperative problem-solving techniques. The Republic's approach to conflicts with external groups during this period emphasized understanding root causes and addressing legitimate grievances while maintaining firm opposition to violence and exploitation. This approach often proved more effective than purely military responses in achieving lasting solutions to regional security challenges. The diplomatic skills and international relationships that Tandi developed during her presidency enhanced the Republic's influence and security, while demonstrating that democratic governments could compete effectively with more authoritarian alternatives. The Republic's reputation for honoring agreements and treating opponents fairly created trust that facilitated future negotiations. The precedents established during Tandi's presidency for peaceful conflict resolution would prove crucial in later periods when the Republic faced more serious internal divisions and external threats. The institutional mechanisms and cultural expectations for non-violent problem-solving provided alternatives to the destructive conflicts that plagued other regions. The death of President Tandi in 2042 marked the end of an era for the new California Republic and created the first major test of the democratic institutions that had developed during her long presidency. The peaceful transition of power that followed demonstrated the strength and maturity of Republic institutions while also revealing some of the challenges that would characterize the post-Tandi period. The succession process functioned exactly as the Republic's constitution specified, with Vice President Aaron Kimball assuming the presidency and new elections scheduled according to the established timetable. This smooth transition provided reassurance to Republic citizens and international observers that democratic governance would continue despite the loss of the Republic's founding leader. The immediate challenges facing Tandi's successors included maintaining the unity and sense of purpose that her leadership had provided while also addressing new problems that required fresh approaches and perspectives. The balance between continuity and change would prove crucial in determining whether the Republic could adapt to new circumstances while preserving its essential character. The political coalitions and institutional arrangements that had developed during Tandi's presidency were tested by the transition, as different groups within the Republic sought to influence the direction of future development. The democratic processes that managed these competing pressures demonstrated the resilience of Republic institutions while also revealing areas where further development would be necessary. The international implications of Tandi's death were significant, as neighboring powers and potential adversaries assessed whether the Republic would maintain its previous policies and capabilities under new leadership. The successful management of this transition enhanced the Republic's reputation for stability and reliability in international affairs. The psychological impact of losing the Republic's founding president was as important as the political consequences, as citizens throughout the territory grieved the loss of a leader who had become a symbol of their shared identity and achievements. The way this loss was processed and integrated into Republic culture would influence the nation's development for years to come. The emergence of new leadership in the post-Tandi era brought different perspectives, priorities, and approaches to Republic governance that reflected both the changed circumstances facing the nation and the natural evolution of democratic institutions. These changes would reshape the Republic's trajectory while testing the adaptability of its democratic framework. The political leaders who emerged in the post-Tandi period were products of a different historical experience than the Republic's founders, having grown up within established institutions rather than participating in their creation. This generational transition brought both advantages and challenges as new leaders attempted to address contemporary problems while honoring the legacy of their predecessors. The expansion of the Republic's territory and population during Tandi's presidency had created new political constituencies with different interests and priorities than the original founding communities. The political dynamics that emerged from this diversity required more complex coalition building and compromise than had been necessary in the Republic's earlier, more homogeneous period. The success and prosperity that the Republic had achieved under Tandi's leadership created new expectations and demands from citizens who had come to take democratic governance and economic prosperity for granted. Meeting these elevated expectations while addressing new challenges required political skills and institutional innovations that tested the capabilities of new leaders. The changing international environment also influenced domestic political dynamics, as the Republic's growing power and influence created new opportunities and responsibilities that required different approaches from those that had been sufficient during the earlier period of consolidation and development. The democratic institutions that had been refined during Tandi's presidency were tested by these new political dynamics, demonstrating both their strength and areas where further evolution would be necessary. The ability of Republic institutions to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining their essential democratic character would prove crucial to the nation's continued success. The post-Tandi era saw a significant shift in the new California Republic's approach to territorial expansion, moving from the cautious, diplomatically driven growth that had characterized the early period to more assertive policies that reflected the Republic's growing power and confidence. This change would have profound consequences for both domestic and international affairs. The expansionist policies that emerged in this period were driven by a combination of factors including economic opportunities, security concerns, and a growing sense of the Republic's manifest destiny to bring democratic governance and prosperity to the broader wasteland. These motivations created political coalitions that supported more aggressive expansion than had previously been considered appropriate. The military and economic capabilities that the Republic had developed during its period of consolidation provided the tools necessary for more assertive expansion, creating temptations to achieve through force what had previously been accomplished through diplomacy. The debate over how these capabilities should be used became a central issue in Republic politics. The territorial acquisitions that resulted from these new policies brought significant benefits to the Republic in terms of resources, strategic position, and economic opportunities. However, they also created new challenges in integrating reluctant populations and managing the tensions that arose from forced rather than voluntary association. The international consequences of the Republic's more assertive expansion policies included deteriorating relations with neighboring powers and the emergence of new security threats from groups that viewed Republic expansion as a threat to their own interests. These developments would eventually lead to more serious conflicts that tested the Republic's military capabilities and political unity. The domestic political impact of expansionist policies included growing divisions between those who supported aggressive expansion and those who preferred the Republic's traditional emphasis on voluntary association and peaceful development. These divisions would become increasingly important in shaping republic politics and policies in the years ahead. The transformation of the new California Republic's military from a primarily defensive force focused on protecting Republic territory into a more capable and assertive organization reflected broader changes in the nation's role and ambitions. This military development was both a cause and consequence of the Republic's shift toward more expansionist policies. The military expansion that occurred in the post-Tandi era was initially justified by legitimate security concerns as the Republic's growing territory and influence attracted attention from potentially hostile neighbors. However, the creation of enhanced military capabilities also created constituencies and interests that supported their use in ways that went beyond purely defensive needs. The professionalization of Republic military forces during this period created a more capable and disciplined organization, but also established military interests that sometimes diverged from civilian priorities and preferences. The tension between military effectiveness and civilian control became an ongoing issue in Republic governance. The development of new military technologies and tactics enhanced the Republic's capability to project power beyond its traditional boundaries, creating opportunities for expansion that had not previously existed. The availability of these capabilities influenced political discussions about how they should be employed and for what purposes. The military culture that developed during this period of expansion emphasized achievement, hierarchy, and mission accomplishment in ways that sometimes conflicted with the collaborative and consensus-oriented traditions of Republic civilian governance. Managing these cultural differences became an important challenge for political leaders. The growing influence of military considerations in Republic policy-making reflected both the practical requirements of managing an expanding empire and the political power of military constituencies. The balance between military and civilian perspectives in policy formation would become increasingly important as the Republic faced more serious external challenges. The exploration and mapping of territories beyond the Republic's traditional boundaries during the post-Tandi era revealed resources and opportunities that stimulated further expansion while also creating new challenges and complications. These discoveries would significantly influence the Republic's development trajectory and international relations. The systematic exploration programs launched during this period combined scientific inquiry with strategic reconnaissance, providing detailed information about the geography, resources, and populations of areas that might be suitable for Republic expansion. These programs represented significant investments that reflected the Republic's growing capabilities and ambitions. The resource discoveries that resulted from exploration efforts included mineral deposits, agricultural lands, and strategic locations that offered significant economic and military advantages. The potential value of these resources created political pressures for expansion that were difficult for political leaders to resist. The contact with new populations that accompanied territorial exploration presented both opportunities and challenges for Republic expansion. Some groups were receptive to Republic governance and the benefits it offered, while others were hostile or had existing political arrangements that complicated potential integration. The technological and logistical challenges of operating in distant territories required innovations in transportation, communication, and supply systems that tested the Republic's administrative and military capabilities. The solutions developed for these challenges enhanced the Republic's overall capacity while also enabling further expansion. The strategic implications of new territorial discoveries included both enhanced security through increased depth and resources and new vulnerabilities created by extended supply lines and hostile neighbors. The balance between opportunities and risks became a central consideration in expansion planning and policy formulation. The growth and success of the new California Republic during the post-Tandi era created new sources of political division and debate that reflected both the natural evolution of democratic institutions and the challenges of managing an increasingly diverse and complex society. These divisions would test the Republic's capacity for democratic governance while also spurring institutional innovation. The economic prosperity that the Republic had achieved created different classes and interest groups with varying perspectives on government policy and priorities. The political coalitions that emerged from this economic diversity required new approaches to coalition building and compromise that tested traditional Republic political practices. The territorial expansion that occurred during this period brought new populations into the Republic with different cultural backgrounds, political traditions, and economic interests. Integrating these diverse groups into Republic political institutions required flexibility and adaptation that sometimes strained existing procedures and expectations. The generational differences between Republic citizens who remembered the founding period and those who had grown up within established institutions created different perspectives on the appropriate balance between continuity and change. These generational tensions influenced debates about everything from constitutional interpretation to foreign policy. The regional differences that existed within the Republic's extensive territory created varying perspectives on federal policies and priorities. The political mechanisms for managing these regional differences became increasingly important as the Republic grew and diversified. The ideological debates that emerged during this period reflected fundamental disagreements about the Republic's proper role and responsibilities in the post-war world. These debates included questions about the appropriate scope of government action, the balance between individual rights and collective needs, and the Republic's obligations to populations beyond its borders. The economic development that occurred during the Republic's growth period created new forms of wealth and political influence that would significantly reshape the nation's political landscape. The emergence of wealthy merchant families as a political force represented both the success of Republic economic policies and new challenges for democratic governance. The accumulation of wealth by successful merchants and entrepreneurs was a natural result of the Republic's market-oriented economic policies and the opportunities created by territorial expansion and population growth. This wealth creation benefited the entire economy through job creation, investment, and innovation, but it also created new inequalities and power relationships. The political influence that wealthy families gained through their economic success was exercised through campaign contributions, lobbying, and informal networks that could influence government policy in ways that served their interests. The challenge for democratic institutions was to maintain responsiveness to these legitimate interests while preserving equal representation for all citizens. The business interests of wealthy merchant families often aligned with expansionist policies that would create new markets and opportunities, creating political coalitions that supported aggressive territorial expansion. The influence of these economic interests on Republic foreign policy became a source of ongoing political debate and controversy. The cultural and social influence of wealthy families extended beyond politics to encompass education, arts, and public projects that shaped Republic society in important ways. This influence was often positive and contributed to cultural development, but it also raised questions about the appropriate role of private wealth in public affairs. The regulatory and tax policies that the Republic developed in response to growing wealth inequality reflected ongoing debates about the proper balance between encouraging economic growth and ensuring that prosperity was broadly shared. These policy debates would become increasingly important as wealth concentration continued to grow. The expansion of the new California Republic's territory, population, and responsibilities during the post-Tandi era required significant growth in governmental institutions and administrative capacity. This bureaucratic development was necessary for effective governance, but also created new challenges and concerns about the relationship between citizens and their government. The administrative systems that developed during this period were designed to manage the complex tasks of governing a large and diverse territory, while maintaining the accountability and responsiveness that democratic governance required. The balance between efficiency and democratic control became an ongoing challenge in administrative design and management. The professionalization of Republic civil service during this period created more competent and consistent administration, but also established bureaucratic interests and cultures that sometimes conflicted with political priorities and citizen preferences. Managing the relationship between political leadership and administrative expertise became an important aspect of democratic governance. The expansion of government services and regulatory responsibilities during this period reflected both citizen demands for government action and the practical requirements of managing a complex modern society. The challenge was to provide necessary services while maintaining the limited government traditions that had characterized the Republic's founding. The coordination requirements created by governmental growth led to more complex administrative procedures and decision-making processes that sometimes slowed government responsiveness and created frustration among citizens and stakeholders. Balancing thoroughness with efficiency became an ongoing administrative challenge. The cost of expanded government operations required higher taxes and more sophisticated fiscal management that tested the Republic's financial capabilities while also creating political debates about the appropriate size and scope of government. These fiscal challenges would become increasingly important as the Republic faced new external threats and internal demands. The new California Republic's initial contact with the Brotherhood of Steel occurred during a period when both organizations were expanding their influence and operations throughout the California wasteland. These early encounters would set the stage for a complex relationship that would significantly influence the development of both groups and the broader political landscape of the region. The Brotherhood's technological superiority and secretive nature initially made them objects of curiosity and respect among Republic citizens and officials. Their advanced equipment and obvious competence in technical matters suggested that they possessed knowledge and capabilities that could benefit the Republic's continued development and expansion. The philosophical differences between the two organizations became apparent even in early interactions, as the Brotherhood's emphasis on controlling access to advanced technology conflicted with the Republic's more open approach to technological development and distribution. These differences were initially managed through diplomatic courtesy, but would prove increasingly problematic over time. The territorial disputes that emerged as both organizations expanded into previously unclaimed areas represented the first serious source of tension between the Republic and the Brotherhood. Both groups had legitimate claims and interests in various locations, but their different approaches to governance and development made compromise difficult to achieve. The intelligence gathering efforts that both organizations directed toward each other reflected the recognition that they were likely to become either important allies or serious rivals depending on how their relationship developed. The information gathered during this period would prove crucial in shaping subsequent policies and strategies. The diplomatic initiatives undertaken by both sides during the early period of contact demonstrated genuine efforts to find common ground and avoid conflict while protecting essential interests. However, the fundamental differences in values and objectives made lasting accommodation increasingly difficult to achieve. The growing conflict between the new California Republic and the Brotherhood of Steel over access to and control of advanced technology represented a fundamental clash of philosophies that could not be resolved through normal diplomatic channels. These tensions would eventually lead to open warfare that would test both organizations' capabilities and resolve. The Republic's position on technology access was based on democratic principles that emphasized the benefits of widespread distribution and the dangers of concentrating power in unaccountable institutions. From the Republic's perspective, the Brotherhood's hoarding of technology represented an unjustifiable restriction on human progress and development. The Brotherhood's concerns about uncontrolled technology proliferation were based on their direct experience with the consequences of technological abuse and their understanding of the dangers that advanced weapons and other systems could pose in the wrong hands. Their restrictive policies were intended to prevent catastrophic misuse rather than to maintain elite privilege. The specific incidents that escalated tensions between the two organizations typically involved disputed claims to pre-war facilities or technology caches that both groups considered important to their missions. These disputes were often complicated by the legitimate interests of local communities that were affected by the competition between the larger powers. The propaganda and public relations efforts undertaken by both sides reflected their understanding that public opinion would be crucial in determining the outcome of their conflict. Each organization sought to portray itself as the legitimate defender of human interests, while depicting its opponent as a threat to peace and progress. The military preparations that both organizations undertook as tensions escalated demonstrated their recognition that diplomatic resolution was becoming increasingly unlikely. The arms race that developed during this period would have significant consequences for the eventual conflict and its aftermath. The transition from escalating tensions to open warfare between the new California Republic and the Brotherhood of Steel was precipitated by a series of incidents that made peaceful resolution impossible despite the efforts of moderates on both sides. The outbreak of hostilities would mark the beginning of the most serious military challenge the Republic had faced since its founding. The immediate cause of the war involved competing claims to a pre-war military facility that both organizations considered crucial to their strategic interests. The Brotherhood's attempt to secure the facility by force was met by Republic military intervention, leading to the first direct combat between the two forces and establishing a precedent for further escalation. The political consequences of the initial fighting were significant for both organizations, as moderate voices that had advocated for compromise were marginalized by the practical requirements of military conflict. The dynamics of warfare created pressures for escalation that made diplomatic resolution increasingly difficult to achieve. The public reaction to the outbreak of fighting was mixed within both organizations, as some members questioned whether the conflict was necessary or winnable, while others embraced the opportunity to resolve long-standing disagreements through decisive action. These internal divisions would influence the conduct of the war and its eventual outcome. The strategic objectives that each side established for the conflict reflected their fundamental disagreements about technology control and governance philosophy. The Republic sought to establish its authority over all territory within its claimed boundaries, while the Brotherhood aimed to secure its access to technology and maintain its autonomy. The international implications of the Brotherhood War were significant, as other powers in the region assessed the conflict's likely outcome and adjusted their own policies and alliances accordingly. The war would ultimately reshape the regional balance of power and influence the development of post-war civilization throughout the wasteland. The military campaigns that characterized the Brotherhood War demonstrated both the strengths and limitations of the opposing forces, while also providing valuable lessons about warfare in the post-nuclear environment. The major battles that occurred during this conflict would be studied by military historians and strategists for generations to come. The Battle of Helios I represented the largest and most significant engagement of the war, as both sides committed substantial forces to control a facility that was seen as crucial to their strategic objectives. The Brotherhood's initial success in securing the facility demonstrated their technological advantages, while the Republic's eventual victory showed the importance of numerical superiority and logistical capability. The siege warfare that characterized much of the conflict reflected the Brotherhood's preference for defensive positions that maximized their technological advantages while minimizing their numerical disadvantages. The Republic's response involved developing new tactics and equipment designed to overcome fortified positions while minimizing casualties. The guerrilla operations that both sides employed in contested territories demonstrated the importance of popular support and local knowledge in determining military outcomes. The Republic's advantages in these areas reflected their more inclusive approach to governance and their stronger relationships with civilian populations. The technological innovations that were developed during the war reflected the pressures of military necessity and the advantages that could be gained through superior equipment and techniques. Both sides invested heavily in military research and development that would have lasting implications for their future capabilities. The logistical challenges faced by both organizations during the extended conflict tested their administrative and supply capabilities, while also demonstrating the importance of industrial capacity and resource availability in determining military outcomes. The Republic's advantages in these areas would prove crucial to their eventual victory. The Brotherhood of Steel's response to the military challenges posed by the new California Republic required significant adaptations in tactics, organization, and strategy that tested their institutional flexibility while also revealing both strengths and limitations in their approach to warfare. The technological advantages that the Brotherhood possessed at the beginning of the conflict were gradually eroded as the Republic developed countermeasures and acquired advanced equipment through capture and reverse engineering. This technological arms race forced the Brotherhood to continuously innovate and adapt to maintain their competitive edge. The organizational changes that the Brotherhood implemented during the war reflected their recognition that their traditional small unit tactics and decentralized command structure were not well suited to large-scale conventional warfare. The adaptations they made improved their effectiveness while also straining their institutional culture and values. The recruitment and training challenges faced by the Brotherhood during the extended conflict forced them to modify their selective admission policies, while maintaining the high standards that were essential to their technological superiority. The balance between quantity and quality became a crucial consideration in personnel policy. The alliance-building efforts that the Brotherhood undertook during the war represented a significant departure from their traditional isolationism and reflected their recognition that they could not defeat the Republic without external assistance. These efforts had mixed success but demonstrated the Brotherhood's capacity for strategic adaptation. The defensive strategies that the Brotherhood developed during the conflict maximized their strengths while minimizing their vulnerabilities. But they also ceded strategic initiative to the Republic and made long-term victory increasingly unlikely. The tension between tactical effectiveness and strategic success became apparent as the war progressed. The human and material costs of the Brotherhood War had profound impacts on New California Republic society that extended far beyond the immediate military consequences. The losses sustained during the conflict tested the Republic's resilience while also forcing important changes in policies and priorities. The casualty rates experienced during major battles shocked Republic citizens who had grown accustomed to the peaceful expansion and prosperity that had characterized most of their nation's history. The reality of large-scale warfare forced a reassessment of the costs and benefits of expansionist policies that had previously enjoyed broad popular support. The economic impact of the war was substantial, as resources that had previously been invested in infrastructure development and public services were diverted to military purposes. The increased taxation and economic controls that were necessary to support the war effort created hardships for many citizens while also demonstrating the Republic's capacity for mobilization. The social changes that resulted from the war included altered gender roles as women took on new responsibilities in the workforce and military, changed family structures as casualties affected household composition, and modified cultural values as the realities of warfare influenced public attitudes about violence and conflict. The political consequences of the war's costs included growing opposition to expansionist policies and increased demand for accountability from political leaders who had supported the conflict. The democratic institutions that managed these political pressures demonstrated their resilience, while also evolving to address new challenges and concerns. The psychological trauma experienced by veterans and civilian populations affected by the war created new demands for medical and social services that the Republic had not previously provided. The development of these services represented important innovations in public policy, while also acknowledging the full costs of military conflict. The new California Republic's ultimate victory in the Brotherhood War was achieved through superior numbers, logistical capabilities, and strategic patience rather than technological superiority or tactical brilliance. The nature of this victory and its costs would significantly influence the Republic's subsequent development in international relations. The decisive factors in the Republic's victory included their ability to sustain military operations over an extended period, their success in maintaining popular support for the war effort, and their capacity to adapt and learn from early defeats and setbacks. These advantages reflected the strength of Republic institutions and the effectiveness of democratic governance even under stress. The Brotherhood's defeat was caused by their inability to overcome fundamental disadvantages in numbers and resources despite their technological superiority and tactical skill. Their isolation from potential allies and their rigid institutional culture limited their ability to adapt to the changing requirements of the conflict. The terms of the Brotherhood's surrender reflected the Republic's desire to end the conflict definitively while avoiding the creation of conditions that might lead to future hostilities. The policies developed for dealing with defeated Brotherhood forces balanced security concerns with humanitarian considerations and the need for eventual reconciliation. The immediate aftermath of victory created new challenges for the Republic as they assumed responsibility for territories and populations that had been under Brotherhood control. The integration of these areas required sensitive policies that could address legitimate grievances while maintaining security and order. The long-term consequences of the victory included enhanced Republic prestige and influence throughout the region, access to advanced technologies that had previously been restricted, and validation of democratic governance as an effective form of organization even under extreme stress. The experience of the Brotherhood War prompted significant reforms and modernization efforts within the new California Republic's military forces that would enhance their capabilities while also addressing problems and inefficiencies revealed during the conflict. These reforms would have lasting impacts on both military effectiveness and civil-military relations. The organizational reforms implemented after the war addressed command and control problems that had hindered military effectiveness during major battles. The new structures improved coordination between different units and service branches, while also maintaining the civilian oversight that was essential to democratic governance. The technological improvements that were incorporated into Republic military forces included both captured Brotherhood equipment and innovations developed during the conflict. The integration of these new capabilities required extensive training and doctrinal changes that enhanced overall military effectiveness. The personnel policies that were modified after the war reflected lessons learned about recruitment, training, and retention during extended conflicts. The new policies improved military professionalism while also maintaining the citizen-soldier traditions that connected the military to broader Republic society. The strategic doctrine that emerged from post-war analysis emphasized the importance of industrial capacity, popular support, and alliance relationships in determining the outcome of major conflicts. This understanding would influence Republic military planning and international relations for years to come. The budgetary and institutional changes that accompanied military modernization reflected the Republic's commitment to maintaining strong defenses while also preserving the domestic priorities that were essential to democratic governance. The balance between military and civilian needs became an ongoing challenge in Republic policy making. The new California Republic's expansion into the Mojave Desert region represented both a natural continuation of their territorial growth and a significant new challenge that would test their capabilities in a harsh and contested environment. The decision to push eastward toward the pre-war city of Las Vegas reflected strategic, economic, and political considerations that would shape the Republic's development for years to come. The strategic rationale for Mojave expansion was based on the region's location along important trade routes connecting California with territories to the east. Control of these routes would enhance the Republic's economic opportunities while also providing strategic depth and security against potential threats from beyond their traditional boundaries. The economic opportunities presented by the Mojave region included access to untapped resources, new markets for Republic goods and services, and control of trade networks that could generate substantial revenue. The potential for economic benefit created powerful political constituencies that supported eastward expansion despite the costs and risks involved. The political pressures for expansion included both popular enthusiasm for the Republic's manifest destiny and specific interests that would benefit from territorial growth. Military leaders saw opportunities to test new capabilities and strategies, while business interests anticipated new opportunities for profit and development. The environmental challenges of operating in the Mojave Desert required new techniques and technologies for water management, transportation, and supply that tested the Republic's adaptive capabilities. The solutions developed for these challenges enhanced overall institutional capacity while also enabling further expansion into difficult terrain. The preparation for Mojave expansion involved extensive planning and resource mobilization that demonstrated the Republic's growing administrative and logistical capabilities. The coordination between military, civilian, and commercial elements of the expansion effort provided valuable experience in managing complex, multifaceted operations. The Republic's expansion into the Mojave brought them into contact with various tribal groups that had adapted to desert conditions and developed their own forms of social organization and territorial control. These encounters would test the Republic's ability to manage relationships with populations that had very different cultural backgrounds and political systems. The tribal societies that the Republic encountered in the Mojave had developed sophisticated survival strategies that were well adapted to the harsh desert environment. Their knowledge of water sources, seasonal patterns, and dangerous areas was invaluable to Republic forces operating in unfamiliar territory. The initial diplomatic contacts between Republic representatives and tribal leaders were complicated by language barriers, cultural misunderstandings, and mutual suspicions about each group's intentions and capabilities. The resolution of these communication challenges required patience, creativity, and cultural sensitivity from both sides. The political structures of Mojave tribes varied considerably, ranging from loose confederations of family groups to more centralized organizations with recognized leadership hierarchies. Understanding and working with these different systems required flexibility and adaptation from Republic officials accustomed to more formal governmental structures. The economic relationships that developed between the Republic and various tribal groups included trade agreements, employment opportunities, and resource-sharing arrangements that benefited both sides. These relationships provided models for future interactions while also creating economic incentives for cooperation and peaceful coexistence. The conflicts that arose between Republic forces and some tribal groups reflected competing claims to territory and resources, as well as cultural differences about appropriate forms of governance and social organization. The resolution of these conflicts tested the Republic's commitment to its stated principles about voluntary association and respect for local autonomy. The Republic's strategy for securing and controlling the Mojave region required the establishment of a network of forward operating bases that could provide security, administration, and support for both military and civilian operations. The development of these bases represented a significant logistical and engineering challenge that tested Republic capabilities. The selection of base locations involved careful consideration of strategic factors including defensive capability, access to water and supply routes, and proximity to important resources or population centers. The planning process required extensive reconnaissance and intelligence gathering that enhanced Republic understanding of the region. The construction of forward bases in the Mojave required innovations in desert building techniques and supply management that drew upon both Republic engineering expertise and local knowledge provided by tribal allies and other regional partners. These innovations would prove valuable for future operations in similar environments. The staffing and operation of forward bases required careful attention to personnel selection and training to ensure that Republic representatives could function effectively in the challenging desert environment, while also maintaining the professional standards and ethical principles that characterized Republic service. The civilian functions performed by forward bases included law enforcement, administrative services, and economic development activities that extended Republic governance into the newly acquired territory. The balance between military and civilian authority became an important consideration in base organization and operations. The security challenges faced by forward bases included both external threats from hostile groups and internal challenges related to supply, communication, and personnel management in isolated locations. The solutions developed for these challenges enhanced Republic capability for frontier operations while also providing valuable experience for future expansion efforts. The Mojave Desert presented the new California Republic with environmental challenges and dangerous wildlife that were unlike anything they had previously encountered in their coastal and valley territories. The adaptation to these new conditions required innovations in tactics, equipment, and procedures that would influence Republic operations for years to come. The mutated wildlife of the Mojave region included species that were particularly well adapted to desert conditions and often more dangerous than their counterparts in other areas. The Republic's encounter with cazadoras, night stalkers, and desert deathclaws required new hunting and defensive techniques that drew upon both military expertise and local knowledge. The environmental hazards of the desert region included extreme temperatures, sandstorms, flash floods, and areas of particularly high radiation that posed serious risks to Republic personnel and operations. The development of appropriate protective equipment and safety procedures was essential for successful operations in the region. The water scarcity that characterized much of the Mojave region required careful management and conservation techniques that challenged Republic logistics and supply capabilities. The solutions developed for these challenges included both technological innovations and administrative procedures that would prove valuable in future operations. The navigation challenges posed by the desert environment required new techniques and equipment for route finding and communication that enhanced Republic capabilities while also providing valuable experience for operations in other difficult terrain. The mapping and survey work conducted during this period created important resources for future reference. The medical challenges posed by desert operations included heat-related injuries, dehydration, radiation exposure, and injuries from dangerous wildlife that required specialized training and equipment for effective treatment. The development of appropriate medical protocols enhanced Republic healthcare capabilities while also improving operational safety. The Republic's discovery and subsequent occupation of Hoover Dam represented one of the most significant strategic and economic achievements of their Mojave expansion. The massive pre-war hydroelectric facility offered unprecedented opportunities for power generation and water management that would transform the Republic's capabilities and regional influence. The strategic importance of Hoover Dam was immediately apparent to Republic leaders as control of the facility would provide both a massive source of electrical power and significant influence over water supplies throughout the Colorado River Basin. The potential for both economic benefit and political leverage made the dam a crucial objective for Republic operations. The technical challenges involved in assessing and restoring the dam's capabilities required the Republic to mobilize their best engineering and scientific talent while also drawing upon any available pre-war documentation and expertise. The complexity of the facility tested Republic technical capabilities while also providing valuable learning opportunities. The security requirements for protecting Hoover Dam were substantial, as the facility's importance made it an obvious target for hostile forces and sabotage attempts. The defensive preparations undertaken by the Republic demonstrated their understanding of the dam's strategic value while also testing their ability to secure critical infrastructure in contested territory. The economic implications of controlling Hoover Dam included not only the direct benefits of electrical power generation, but also the potential for controlling regional development through infrastructure and energy policy. The Republic's approach to managing these opportunities would influence their relationships with other regional powers and the development of the broader Mojave region. The political significance of Hoover Dam extended beyond its immediate economic and strategic value to encompass symbolic importance as a demonstration of the Republic's capability to restore and operate major pre-war infrastructure. The successful management of the facility became a source of pride and legitimacy for Republic governance throughout the region. The new California Republic's initial efforts to establish secure control over the Mojave region encountered various challenges and setbacks that tested their strategic planning and operational capabilities. The lessons learned during this early period would prove crucial for subsequent operations and policy development. The territorial control challenges faced by the Republic in the Mojave reflected the region's vast size, difficult terrain, and the presence of various hostile groups that contested Republic authority. The development of effective patrol and security procedures required adaptation of existing tactics to new environmental and operational conditions. The administrative challenges of governing the Mojave region included establishing law enforcement, taxation, and public services in areas that had little previous experience with formal governmental structures. The solutions developed for these challenges required creativity and flexibility while maintaining Republic standards and principles. The diplomatic efforts undertaken by the Republic to build relationships with local populations and neighboring powers were complicated by the complex political landscape of the region and the presence of various competing interests and authorities. The balance between accommodation and assertion of Republic authority required careful judgment and skilled execution. The resource allocation decisions involved in securing the Mojave required difficult choices about priorities and strategies given the Republic's limited personnel and material resources. The trade-offs between immediate security needs and long-term development goals became ongoing considerations in policy planning and implementation. The intelligence gathering operations conducted during the initial period of Mojave expansion provided valuable information about regional conditions, threats, and opportunities that influenced subsequent policy and strategy development. The integration of this intelligence into Republic planning processes enhanced decision-making capabilities while also identifying areas requiring further investigation. The Republic's first contacts with advanced elements of Caesar's Legion marked the beginning of what would become the most serious external threat the Republic had faced since the Brotherhood War. These initial encounters provided crucial intelligence about a new enemy, while also revealing the extent of the challenges that lay ahead. The Legion's scouts that Republic forces encountered in the eastern Mojave were clearly part of a larger, well-organized military force that represented a fundamentally different approach to post-war governance and social organization. The discipline and equipment of these advanced forces suggested capabilities that demanded serious Republic attention and preparation. The information gathered from captured Legion scouts and from observation of their operations provided the Republic with its first detailed understanding of Legion ideology, organization, and capabilities. This intelligence revealed a society based on slavery, autocracy, and militarism that represented everything the Republic opposed and sought to prevent. The tactical capabilities demonstrated by Legion scouts included sophisticated reconnaissance techniques, effective communication systems, and combat skills that indicated extensive training and experience. The Republic's assessment of these capabilities influenced their own military planning and preparation for what appeared to be an inevitable larger conflict. The strategic implications of Legion presence in the region included not only the direct military threat, but also the potential impact on Republic relationships with local populations and neighboring powers. The contrast between Republic and Legion approaches to governance became a crucial factor in building support for Republic policies. The diplomatic challenges posed by Legion expansion included both direct negotiations with Legion representatives and efforts to build coalitions with other regional powers that might oppose Legion objectives. The Republic's approach to these challenges would test their diplomatic skills while also determining the extent of support they could expect in any future conflict. The Mojave Desert's strategic significance for the new California Republic extended far beyond its immediate resources and population to encompass broader questions about the Republic's future development and its role in post-war civilization. The region's control would determine the Republic's capacity for further expansion and its ability to influence continental development. The geographic location of the Mojave region made it a crucial crossroads for trade and communication between the western coastal areas where the Republic had developed and the vast territories to the east where other powers and populations were also attempting to rebuild civilization. Control of this crossroads would significantly influence the Republic's economic and political future. The resource potential of the Mojave region included not only immediate assets like water and power from Hoover Dam, but also longer-term opportunities for mineral extraction, agricultural development, and industrial growth that could support continued republic expansion and prosperity. The realization of this potential required substantial investment and effective governance. The security implications of Mojave control included both the defensive benefits of increased strategic depth and the offensive capabilities that would come from forward bases closer to potential threats and opportunities. The region's control would significantly enhance the Republic's ability to project power and influence throughout the Western continent. The political significance of successful Mojave expansion included validation of Republic capabilities and principles, demonstration of effective democratic governance under challenging conditions, and enhancement of the Republic's reputation and influence among other post-war societies and governments. The symbolic importance of the Mojave region reflected its connection to pre-war American heritage and the opportunities it provided for demonstrating the Republic's capacity to restore and surpass pre-war achievements. The successful development of the region would provide powerful evidence of the Republic's legitimacy as the heir to pre-war democratic traditions. While the new California Republic was expanding eastward into the Mojave, a very different kind of empire was taking shape in the territories beyond the Colorado River. The rise of Caesar's legion under the leadership of Edward Sallow represented a fundamental challenge to the Republic's vision of post-war civilization and would ultimately lead to the most serious military conflict in the Republic's history. The tribal societies of Arizona had developed various forms of organization and governance following the Great War, ranging from loose confederations to more structured hierarchies. These diverse groups had found ways to survive in the harsh desert environment while maintaining their cultural traditions and territorial autonomy. Caesar's approach to unifying these tribes was radically different from the Republic's emphasis on voluntary association and democratic governance. Through a combination of military conquest, psychological manipulation, and systematic cultural destruction, he forged the disparate tribes into a unified military organization based on the model of the ancient Roman Empire. The speed and thoroughness of Caesar's conquest reflected both his personal charisma and strategic acumen, and the effectiveness of the military organization he created. The legion's emphasis on discipline, hierarchy, and absolute obedience created a formidable fighting force that could overcome tribal divisions and resistance through superior organization and tactics. The cultural transformation that Caesar imposed on conquered tribes was as significant as the military conquest itself. Traditional tribal identities, languages, and customs were systematically suppressed and replaced with legion ideology and practices that emphasized service to the state and unquestioning obedience to authority. The brutality that characterized legion expansion served both practical and ideological purposes, demonstrating the consequences of resistance while also creating a culture of fear and submission that reinforced legion control. The systematic use of crucifixion, slavery, and other forms of extreme punishment became defining characteristics of legion rule. Caesar's legion was built around an ideology that combined elements of ancient Roman imperialism with post-war pragmatism to create a system of governance that was fundamentally opposed to the democratic principles that guided the new California Republic. This philosophical foundation would drive the legion toward inevitable conflict with the Republic and other democratic societies. The legion's political philosophy was based on the premise that the chaos and suffering of the post-war world required strong centralized authority that could impose order through force and maintain it through fear. Caesar argued that democracy and individual freedom were luxuries that could not be afforded in the harsh realities of the wasteland. The social organization of the legion was structured around strict hierarchies that reflected military rank and personal loyalty to Caesar rather than democratic representation or individual merit. This system created clear chains of command and responsibility while also eliminating the debates and disagreements that Caesar viewed as weaknesses in democratic systems. The economic philosophy of the Legion emphasized military necessity over individual prosperity, with resources directed towards supporting expansion and conquest rather than improving living standards or developing civilian infrastructure. This approach created a society that was highly effective for warfare but offered little opportunity for personal advancement or cultural development. The expansion doctrine that guided Legion operations was based on the belief that security and prosperity could only be achieved through continuous conquest and the elimination of potential threats. This philosophy made peaceful coexistence with other powers extremely difficult and created pressures for constant military action. The cultural policies of the Legion emphasized uniformity and conformity rather than diversity and individual expression. The suppression of local traditions and the imposition of Legion ideology created a homogeneous society that could be easily controlled but lacked the creativity and adaptability that characterized more open societies. The initial clashes between the New California Republic and Caesar's Legion occurred along the Colorado River as both powers expanded toward their natural geographic boundaries. These early conflicts provided each side with crucial intelligence about their opponent's capabilities, while also establishing the pattern of confrontation that would characterize their relationship. The border skirmishes that preceded major conflicts reflected the competitive dynamics of expansion as both powers sought to secure strategic positions and resources along the river. These smaller encounters provided valuable tactical experience while also escalating tensions and making larger conflicts increasingly inevitable. The first major battle between Republic and Legion forces demonstrated the fundamental differences in their military approaches and capabilities. Smaller encounters provided valuable tactical experience while also escalating tensions and making larger conflicts increasingly inevitable. The first major battle between Republic and Legion forces demonstrated the fundamental difference of NCR Rangers. The Republic's emphasis on combined arms tactics, technological superiority, and professional training was tested against the Legion's focus on discipline, numbers, and willingness to accept heavy casualties. The intelligence gathering efforts that both sides undertook during this period provided crucial information about enemy capabilities, organization, and intentions that would influence subsequent strategic planning and tactical development. The contrast in intelligence methods reflected broader differences in institutional culture and operational philosophy. The diplomatic initiatives that accompanied military preparations were limited by the fundamental incompatibility of Republic and Legion ideologies. While both sides engaged in formal communications, the possibility of lasting peaceful coexistence was undermined by their mutually exclusive visions of appropriate governance and social organization. The propaganda efforts undertaken by both powers during this period sought to justify their positions and build support among neutral populations and potential allies. The contrast between Republic appeals to freedom and democracy, and Legion emphasis on order and security reflected their different approaches to legitimacy and political authority. The First Battle of Hoover Dam represented the climactic engagement of the initial phase of the Republic-Legion conflict and would establish the strategic framework that would govern their relationship for years to come. The battle's outcome would determine control of the most important strategic asset in the region while also testing both powers' military capabilities under extreme pressure. The strategic importance of Hoover Dam to both sides made the battle inevitable once tensions had escalated beyond the possibility of negotiated resolution. For the Republic, the dam represented the key to their Mojave expansion and their ability to project power eastward. For the Legion, capturing the dam would provide both strategic advantages and symbolic validation of their superiority over democratic governance. The Republic's defensive preparations for the battle reflected their understanding of the dam's crucial importance and their determination to hold it against any assault. The fortifications, weapons emplacements, and defensive positions created around the dam represented the Republic's most sophisticated military engineering to date. The Legion's assault strategy emphasized their traditional strengths in discipline, numbers, and willingness to accept casualties while attempting to overcome the Republic's advantages in technology and defensive position. The tactics employed reflected Caesar's personal involvement in planning and his confidence in Legion capabilities. The fighting itself was characterized by extreme intensity and heavy casualties on both sides as the Legion's determination to capture the dam met the Republic's equal determination to hold it. The battle tested both forces' training, equipment, and morale, while also providing valuable lessons about large-scale warfare in post-war conditions. The Republic's victory in the first battle established their control over Hoover Dam while also demonstrating their capability to defeat the Legion's best forces under the most challenging conditions. The success validated Republic military doctrine and boosted confidence in their ability to defend their territory against future threats. The Republic's victory in the First Battle of Hoover Dam was followed by a period of territorial expansion and consolidation that appeared to validate their strategic approach and military capabilities. The gains achieved during this period would establish the forward positions that would define the front lines for subsequent phases of the conflict. The territorial advances that followed the dam's successful defense included the establishment of Republic control over much of the western Mojave and the creation of forward bases that could support further operations. These gains provided strategic depth and improved supply lines while also demonstrating Republic capability to project power beyond their traditional boundaries. The administrative challenges of governing newly acquired territories required the rapid deployment of civilian authorities and the establishment of basic governmental services in areas that had little previous experience with Republic institutions. The success of these efforts demonstrated the Republic's capacity for effective territorial administration under difficult conditions. The diplomatic benefits of military success included enhanced credibility with potential allies and improved negotiating positions with neutral powers. The Republic's demonstration of effective military capability made them more attractive partners while also deterring potential threats from other regional powers. The economic opportunities created by territorial expansion included access to new resources, markets, and trade routes that could support continued Republic growth and development. The integration of these new assets into the Republic's economic system required careful planning and management, but provided substantial benefits. The psychological impact of success was significant for both Republic forces and civilian populations, providing validation of their cause and confidence in their ultimate victory. The morale boost from initial successes would prove crucial in sustaining the Republic through the more difficult phases of the conflict that lay ahead. The Republic's strategy for consolidating their gains and preparing for continued conflict with Caesar's Legion required the establishment of major forward bases that could support both defensive and offensive operations. Camp McCarron became the centerpiece of this defensive network and would play a crucial role in subsequent military operations. The selection of the former McCarron International Airport as the site for the Republic's major forward base reflected both practical considerations about infrastructure and strategic thinking about air operations and supply. The facility's pre-war construction provided excellent foundations for military development, while its location offered strategic advantages for regional operations. The development of Camp McCarron into a major military installation required substantial investment in infrastructure, fortifications, and support facilities that demonstrated the Republic's commitment to maintaining a permanent presence in the Mojave region. The base became a symbol of Republic determination and capability that influenced both allies and enemies. The coordination between Camp McCarron and other forward bases throughout the region created a defensive network that could provide mutual support while also enabling offensive operations when opportunities arose. The integration of these facilities required sophisticated communication and supply systems that tested Republic logistical capabilities. The personnel assignments to forward bases required careful selection of individuals who could function effectively under the stress of frontier conditions while maintaining the professional standards and ethical principles that characterized Republic service. The quality of personnel stationed at these bases would prove crucial to their effectiveness and the success of Republic operations. The impact of forward base establishment on regional development was significant, as the Republic's presence attracted civilian settlement and economic activity that helped consolidate territorial gains while also providing political and economic justification for continued military presence. As the new California Republic gained more experience fighting Caesar's Legion and gathered additional intelligence about their organization and capabilities, a clearer picture emerged of the magnitude of the threat they faced. This growing awareness would profoundly influence Republic strategy and policy development for years to come. The intelligence gathered about Legion organization revealed a society that was entirely devoted to military conquest and expansion, with no apparent interest in the peaceful coexistence or negotiated settlement that had characterized most of the Republic's previous conflicts. The intelligence gathered about Legion organization revealed a society that was entirely devoted to military conquest and expansion, with no apparent interest in the peaceful coexistence or negotiated settlement that had characterized most of the Republic's previous conflicts. This realization forced a fundamental reassessment of diplomatic possibilities and strategic options. The assessment of Legion military capabilities showed that they possessed significant advantages in numbers, discipline, and strategic mobility that could potentially overcome Republic advantages in technology and defensive position. The recognition of these capabilities required adjustments to Republic military doctrine and force structure. The analysis of Legion ideology and leadership revealed that the conflict was not simply a territorial dispute that could be resolved through compromise, but represented a fundamental clash between incompatible visions of civilization and governance. This understanding made clear that the conflict would likely continue until one side achieved decisive victory. The evaluation of Legion territorial control showed that they had created a unified empire spanning much of the former southwestern United States, with resources and population that could support extended military operations against the Republic. The scope of this empire made clear that the Legion represented a far more serious threat than any previous Republic adversary. The recognition of the Legion threat's magnitude led to significant changes in Republic planning and resource allocation, with increased emphasis on military preparation and decreased investment in civilian projects. The reorientation toward a wartime footing would have lasting impacts on Republic society and governance. The Republic's recognition that their conflict with Caesar's Legion would likely be prolonged and costly required extensive preparations that would test their institutional capabilities while also transforming their society and governance. The mobilization efforts undertaken during this period would demonstrate both the strengths and limitations of democratic governance under extreme stress. The military preparations for extended conflict included expansion of Republic armed forces, development of new weapons and tactics, and establishment of training programs that could produce the personnel necessary for large-scale warfare. The scale of this mobilization required unprecedented coordination between military and civilian authorities. The economic mobilization necessary for sustained warfare required significant changes in Republic fiscal and industrial policies, with resources redirected from civilian purposes to military production and support. The management of this economic transformation tested Republic administrative capabilities while also creating political pressures that challenged democratic institutions. The political preparations for extended conflict included building public support for the sacrifices that would be required while maintaining democratic governance and accountability. Despite the pressures of wartime conditions, the balance between security needs and democratic principles became an ongoing challenge for Republic leadership. The diplomatic efforts undertaken to build alliances and secure support for the Republic's position required extensive negotiations with potential partners throughout the region. The success of these efforts would prove crucial in determining the Republic's ability to sustain operations against a determined and capable enemy. The social preparations for extended conflict included developing policies for managing casualties, refugees, and the various disruptions that warfare would create for civilian populations. The Republic's approach to these challenges would test their commitment to democratic values while also determining their capacity for maintaining social cohesion under stress. The period between the first and second battles of Hoover Dam was characterized by continuous skirmishing, intelligence gathering, and strategic positioning as both the New California Republic and Caesar's Legion prepared for what all understood would be the decisive engagement of their conflict. The period between the first and second battles of Hoover Dam was characterized by continuous skirmishing, intelligence gathering, 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 intelligence gathering. The preparations undertaken during this period would determine not only the battle's outcome but also the future of post-war civilization in Western North America. The strategic situation that developed during this interim period saw both powers strengthening their positions while seeking advantages that might prove decisive in the coming battle. The Republic focused on improving their defensive positions and supply lines while also seeking to exploit weaknesses in Legion organization and morale that intelligence operations had identified. The Legion's preparations for the second assault reflected lessons learned from their initial failure while also incorporating new tactical innovations and strategic approaches. Caesar's personal involvement in planning demonstrated his understanding that this battle would likely determine his empire's fate and his own historical legacy. The diplomatic efforts undertaken by both sides during this period sought to influence neutral parties and potential allies while also attempting to undermine enemy support. The Republic's emphasis on democratic values and individual freedom was contrasted with the Legion's appeals to order and security in a chaotic world. The intelligence warfare that characterized this period involved extensive efforts by both sides to gather information about enemy capabilities, plans, and weaknesses while protecting their own sensitive information. The sophistication of these operations reflected the high stakes involved and the recognition that information could be as important as military hardware in determining the outcome. The psychological preparation for battle involved efforts to maintain morale and confidence among friendly forces while attempting to undermine enemy resolve through propaganda and demonstration of strength. The mental and emotional state of the forces involved would prove as important as their physical capabilities in determining the battle's outcome. The Second Battle of Hoover Dam represented a crucial turning point that could have unfolded in several different ways, each with profound implications for the future of both the New California Republic and Caesar's Legion. The various possible outcomes would have determined not only the immediate winner of the battle but also the long-term trajectory of post-war civilization. A decisive Republic victory would have validated their military doctrine and democratic institutions while potentially leading to the collapse or significant weakening of Caesar's Legion. Such an outcome would have established the Republic as the dominant power in the region while demonstrating the effectiveness of democratic governance even under extreme military pressure. A Legion victory would have represented a catastrophic defeat for the Republic with implications extending far beyond the immediate military consequences. The loss of Hoover Dam and the Mojave region would have severely damaged Republic prestige and capabilities while potentially triggering internal political crises that could have threatened the survival of democratic institutions. A costly stalemate or Pyrrhic victory for either side would have prolonged the conflict while exhausting both powers and creating opportunities for other regional actors to advance their own interests. Such an outcome might have led to the fragmentation of both empires and the emergence of a more multipolar regional system. The involvement of external actors in determining the battle's outcome could have significantly influenced the post-war balance of power while also establishing precedents for outside intervention in regional conflicts. The role of groups like the Brotherhood of Steel or various tribal confederations could have been decisive in determining which vision of civilization would prevail. The impact of technological factors, including the potential activation or destruction of pre-war facilities and weapons systems, could have fundamentally altered the strategic balance regardless of conventional military outcomes. The use or control of such assets would have provided significant advantages to whichever side could secure them. Regardless of the specific outcome of the Second Battle of Hoover Dam, the new California Republic had established itself as one of the major powers in post-war North America and a significant influence on the development of wasteland civilization. The Republic's achievements and continuing challenges would shape the future of democratic governance in the post-nuclear world. The Republic's territorial extent by this period encompassed much of what had once been California, along with portions of Nevada, Oregon, and Baja California. This vast domain included diverse populations, landscapes, and resources that provided both opportunities and challenges for democratic governance on a continental scale. The institutional development that the Republic had achieved during its growth from a small farming settlement to a major regional power demonstrated the viability of democratic governance even under the extreme conditions of the post-war world. The success of Republic institutions provided a model that influenced other regions while also inspiring confidence in democratic alternatives to authoritarian rule. The economic capabilities that the Republic had developed made it a major force in regional trade and development while also providing the resources necessary for continued expansion and defense. The Republic's market economy and technological capabilities offered alternatives to the purely military societies that had emerged in other regions. The military capabilities that the Republic had developed through its various conflicts made it a formidable power capable of defending its interests while also projecting influence throughout the Western continent. The balance between military strength and civilian control that the Republic maintained demonstrated that democratic societies could be both peaceful and strong. The cultural and ideological influence of the Republic extended far beyond its territorial boundaries through trade relationships, diplomatic contacts, and the example of its success. The Republic's commitment to individual rights, democratic governance, and economic opportunity made it an attractive model for other communities seeking alternatives to chaos or authoritarianism. The modern New California Republic faces a complex array of challenges and opportunities that will determine its future development and its continued role as a leader in post-war reconstruction. The decisions made in addressing these contemporary issues will influence not only the Republic's own trajectory, but also the broader development of wasteland civilization. The demographic challenges facing the Republic include managing continued population growth while maintaining social cohesion and democratic participation. The integration of diverse populations with different cultural backgrounds and political traditions requires ongoing innovation in governance while preserving the democratic values that define Republic identity. The economic challenges of the modern period include managing the transition from a primarily agricultural economy to a more industrialized system, while maintaining environmental sustainability and ensuring that prosperity is broadly shared. The balance between economic growth and social equity continues to be a central concern for Republic policymakers. The security challenges that persist in the modern wasteland include not only external threats from hostile powers, but also internal challenges related to crime, civil unrest, and the ongoing presence of dangerous creatures and environmental hazards. The Republic's approach to these challenges must balance security needs with civil liberties and democratic governance. The technological opportunities available to the modern Republic include both recovered pre-war knowledge and contemporary innovations that could significantly enhance quality of life and economic productivity. The challenge lies in developing and deploying these technologies safely while maintaining democratic control over their use and distribution. The diplomatic opportunities in the modern wasteland include building relationships with other emerging powers and civilizations that share compatible values and interests. The Republic's success in creating beneficial partnerships will significantly influence its ability to shape regional development and promote democratic governance. As the new California Republic enters its third century of existence, questions about its future direction and development become increasingly important for understanding the trajectory of post-war civilization. The choices made by Republic leaders and citizens in the coming years will determine whether the democratic experiment that began in Shady Sands will continue to flourish and expand. The institutional evolution that the Republic will need to undergo to address future challenges will require maintaining the fundamental democratic principles that have guided its development while adapting to new circumstances and opportunities. The flexibility and responsiveness of Republic institutions will be crucial in determining their continued effectiveness and legitimacy. The territorial expansion that the Republic may pursue in the future will need to balance the benefits of increased resources and influence with the challenges of governing larger and more diverse populations. The methods used for expansion and integration will significantly influence the Republic's character and the sustainability of its democratic institutions. The technological development that the Republic pursues will need to enhance citizen welfare and economic productivity while avoiding the catastrophic mistakes that led to the Great War. The Republic's approach to technological governance will provide a model for other societies while also determining its own future capabilities and security. The international relationships that the Republic develops will significantly influence its ability to promote democratic values and peaceful development throughout the wasteland. The success of Republic diplomacy in building constructive partnerships will determine its role in shaping post-war civilization. The cultural and social development that occurs within the Republic will determine whether it can maintain the civic virtues and democratic values that have enabled its success, while also accommodating the diversity and change that come with growth and modernization. The chains and chains that come with growth and modernization. The chains and chains that come with growth and modernization. The transformation of the new California Republic from the small farming settlement of Shady Sands to a major continental power represents one of the most remarkable achievements in post-war history. This journey demonstrates the potential for democratic governance to flourish even under the most challenging circumstances, while also providing valuable lessons about the conditions necessary for such success. The foundation of the Republic's success lies in the democratic values and collaborative spirit that characterized the original Shady Sands community. The emphasis on voluntary cooperation, mutual aid, and collective decision-making created a culture that could adapt and scale as the community grew while maintaining its essential character and principles. The leadership provided by figures like Aradesh and Tandi was crucial in maintaining democratic governance through the challenges of growth and expansion. Their commitment to consultation, consensus building, and service rather than personal aggrandizement established precedents that influenced Republic governance for generations. The institutional innovations that the Republic developed to address the challenges of governing diverse populations over vast territories demonstrated the adaptability and creativity of democratic governance. The federal system, professional civil service, and independent judiciary that emerged provided frameworks for effective governance that could evolve with changing circumstances. The economic development that accompanied political growth created the prosperity and opportunity that made Republic citizenship attractive to new populations while also providing the resources necessary for continued expansion and defense. The balance between market freedom and public investment proved crucial in sustaining both growth and social cohesion. The military capabilities that the Republic developed enabled it to defend its achievements while also projecting power in support of democratic values and peaceful development. The maintenance of civilian control over military forces demonstrated that democratic societies could be both strong and peaceful. President Tandi's vision of a unified California based on democratic principles and voluntary cooperation became the foundation for a transformation that extended far beyond the geographic boundaries of the original Republic. Her understanding of how diverse communities could work together while maintaining their autonomy created a model that would influence post-war development throughout North America. The political philosophy that Tandi articulated emphasized the practical benefits of democratic governance while also appealing to higher ideals about human dignity and self-determination. This combination of pragmatism and idealism proved crucial in building support for the Republic while also maintaining its moral authority during difficult periods. The institutional frameworks that were established during Tandi's presidency provided the foundation for continued republic development long after her death. The constitutional system, federal structure, and democratic processes that she helped create proved adaptable enough to handle new challenges while maintaining their essential character. The diplomatic approach that Tandi pioneered emphasized voluntary association and mutual benefit rather than conquest or coercion. This approach not only enabled peaceful expansion but also created stronger and more lasting bonds between republic members than could have been achieved through force. The economic policies that were implemented during Tandi's presidency created sustainable prosperity that supported continued growth while also ensuring that the benefits of development were broadly shared. The balance between private enterprise and public investment became a model for other regions attempting to rebuild their economies. The cultural values that Tandi promoted emphasized education, civic participation, and respect for diversity within a framework of shared democratic principles. These values created a republic identity that could unite diverse populations while preserving the distinctive contributions of different communities. The New California Republic's success in establishing and maintaining democratic governance in the post-war world represents an ongoing struggle against the forces of chaos, authoritarianism, and despair that have characterized much of the wasteland experience. This struggle continues to define the Republic's mission and its role in post-war civilization. The external threats that the Republic faces from authoritarian powers like Caesar's Legion represent fundamental challenges to the survival of democratic values in the post-war world. The Republic's ability to defend itself while maintaining its democratic character will significantly influence whether democratic governance can survive and flourish in the wasteland. The internal challenges that the Republic faces in maintaining democratic governance include the pressures of war, economic inequality, and the tensions that arise from governing diverse populations with different interests and values. The Republic's success in addressing these challenges will determine whether democracy can remain viable under post-war conditions. The educational and cultural efforts that the Republic undertakes to promote democratic values and civic participation are crucial for maintaining the popular support and understanding that democratic governance requires. The success of these efforts will determine whether future generations will continue to value and support democratic institutions. The international influence that the Republic exercises through diplomacy, trade, and example provides opportunities to promote democratic values and peaceful development throughout the wasteland. The Republic's effectiveness in this role will significantly influence the broader development of post-war civilization. The ongoing innovation and adaptation that Republic institutions undergo in response to new challenges demonstrate the dynamic nature of democratic governance and its capacity for evolution and improvement. The continued vitality of these institutions will determine the Republic's future success and influence. As we reach the end of our gentle journey through the history of the New California Republic, let us pause to contemplate the remarkable story we have shared together. From the humble beginnings of Shady Sands, where a small group of survivors chose cooperation over conflict, to the vast democratic federation that spans much of the western wasteland, we have witnessed one of the most inspiring transformations in post-war history. The story of the NCR is ultimately a story about the power of hope and the strength that comes from working together toward common goals. In a world that had been shattered by nuclear fire and poisoned by despair, ordinary people chose to believe that something better was possible. They planted crops in irradiated soil, built homes from salvaged materials, and created institutions based on trust and mutual respect. What makes this story so remarkable is not the absence of challenges or failures, but the persistent determination to overcome them through democratic means. When raiders threatened their settlements, they organized collective defense. When disputes arose between communities, they developed fair procedures for resolution. When expansion became necessary, they chose persuasion over conquest. The leaders who guided this transformation, Aradesh, Tandi, and many others whose names we have not mentioned but whose contributions were equally vital, understood that true leadership means service to others rather than personal aggrandizement. They listened more than they spoke, included rather than excluded, and always kept the common good above their own interests. The institutions that emerged from this democratic experiment proved to be remarkably resilient and adaptable. The constitution that was drafted in those early years of the Republic has been amended and refined, but its fundamental principles of representation, individual rights, and federal governance continue to guide the nation today. The system has bent under pressure but never broken. Perhaps most importantly, the NCR has demonstrated that democracy and strength are not incompatible. The Republic has successfully defended itself against external threats while maintaining its commitment to peaceful resolution of disputes. Also, it has grown prosperous while ensuring that the benefits of prosperity are shared. It has become powerful while remaining accountable to its citizens. The rise of the new California Republic represents more than just one nation's success. It embodies the eternal human capacity for renewal and rebirth even after the most devastating setbacks. The cycle of destruction and reconstruction that characterizes human history found new expression in the ashes of the nuclear apocalypse. The Great War of 2077 seemed to mark the end of human civilization as it had existed for millennia. The cities were ruined, the governments destroyed, the very air and water poisoned by radiation. Many believed that humanity would never again achieve the heights of knowledge and prosperity that had characterized the pre-war world. Yet, within a few generations, new communities were flourishing, new institutions were taking root, and new forms of governance were emerging that in many ways surpassed their pre-war predecessors. The NCR's democracy is more inclusive than most pre-war governments, its economy more sustainable, and its society more resilient to external shocks. This renewal was not automatic or inevitable. It required countless individual decisions by people who chose to work for the common good rather than merely their own survival. It required leaders who could inspire others to believe in possibilities beyond their immediate circumstances. It required institutions that could adapt and evolve while maintaining their essential character. The cyclical nature of this process reminds us that no achievement is permanent, no institution immortal. The NCR's success creates new challenges and responsibilities that will test future generations just as the founders were tested by the challenges of their time. The vigilance and commitment that built the Republic will be required to preserve and improve it. Yet the story also provides hope that even the most devastating setbacks can be overcome through human ingenuity, cooperation, and determination. If democracy could take root and flourish in the wasteland, if prosperity could emerge from devastation, if peace could triumph over chaos, then no challenge is too great for human beings working together. As evening falls across the new California Republic, imagine with me the gentle scenes of peace and prosperity that characterize this remarkable nation. In countless settlements throughout the territory, families gather around dinner tables to share the day's experiences and plan for tomorrow's possibilities. Children play safely in streets that are patrolled by citizen soldiers who serve their communities with pride and dedication. Picture the farms and ranches that dot the Republic's landscape, where Brahmin graze peacefully in fields of crops that wave gently in the desert breeze. The irrigation systems that bring life-giving water to once barren soil reflect the ingenuity and cooperation that have made the Republic's prosperity possible. Farmers work their land with confidence, knowing that their efforts contribute to the common good while providing for their families' needs. Envision the trading posts and markets where merchants from throughout the wasteland gather to exchange goods and ideas. The peaceful commerce that flows along the Republic's roads demonstrates the trust and stability that democratic governance has brought to a region once plagued by violence and uncertainty. Caravans travel safely under the protection of NCR Rangers, carrying not just merchandise but also news and innovations that enrich all communities. See the schools and libraries where children learn not just reading and writing but also the civic virtues and democratic values that will enable them to participate effectively in their society's governance. Teachers who serve their communities with dedication pass on both practical knowledge and the principles of citizenship that will sustain the Republic for generations to come. Observe the town halls and civic centers where citizens gather to discuss community issues and participate in the democratic processes that give them voice in their own governance. These meetings may sometimes be contentious, but they represent the peaceful resolution of disputes that is the hallmark of a mature democracy. Watch the sunset paint the Republic's flag, the two-headed bear that symbolizes strength and unity, as it flies over countless settlements that have chosen to join together in common cause. This symbol represents not conquest or domination, but voluntary association based on shared values and mutual benefit. In a world that often celebrates the dramatic and the violent, the story of the New California Republic reminds us of the quiet strength that comes from democracy and cooperation. The Republic's greatest achievements were not won through dramatic battles or heroic gestures, but through the patient daily work of ordinary citizens committed to building something better than what they had inherited. The strength of democracy lies not in the power of individual leaders, but in the collective wisdom of engaged citizens. The Republic's success reflects millions of individual decisions by people who chose to participate in their communities, to vote in elections, to serve on juries, to pay taxes that support public goods, and to volunteer their time for causes greater than themselves. The cooperation that has characterized the Republic's development demonstrates that human beings have natural capacities for working together toward common goals. The competitive instincts that can lead to conflict can also be channeled into productive competition that benefits everyone. The diversity that might have been a source of division became a source of strength as different communities contributed their unique skills and perspectives to the common enterprise. The quiet strength of democratic governance is evident in its ability to adapt and evolve without losing its essential character. The Republic's institutions have changed significantly since the days of Shady Sands, but they remain grounded in the same principles of representation, accountability, and respect for individual rights that guided the founders. This strength is also evident in the Republic's resilience in the face of external threats and internal challenges. The democratic process provides peaceful means for addressing disagreements and adapting to new circumstances. Citizens who might disagree strongly about specific policies can still work together because they share commitment to the democratic process itself. The cooperation that democracy fosters extends beyond formal governmental institutions to encompass the voluntary associations and community organizations that enrich civic life. From mutual aid societies to cultural organizations to professional associations, the Republic's citizens have created countless ways to work together for their common benefit. Perhaps most importantly, the quiet strength of democracy lies in its moral authority. The Republic's legitimacy does not depend on fear or force, but on the consent of the governed. This moral foundation provides a strength that cannot be shaken by military defeat or economic hardship because it is rooted in the deepest human aspirations for dignity and self-determination. As our long journey through the history of the New California Republic draws to its peaceful close, allow your mind to settle into the gentle rhythms of a civilization at rest. Let the steady heartbeat of democracy, the quiet breathing of communities at peace, and the soft whisper of trade winds across the desert landscape carry you toward the tranquil sleep that awaits. Think of the children of the Republic, safe in their beds tonight, dreaming of futures bright with possibility. Their parents and grandparents have built for them a world where learning is valued, where voices are heard, where differences are resolved through discussion rather than violence. These children will grow up knowing that their choices matter, that their votes count, that their participation in the great democratic experiment will help shape the world they inherit. Picture the sentries who keep watch along the Republic's borders, not as conquerors surveying their domain, but as citizens protecting their neighbors. These men and women serve with pride because they know their service preserves something precious: the freedom for families to sleep safely, for farmers to plan their harvests, for merchants to trade without fear, for scholars to pursue knowledge, and for all citizens to participate in governing themselves. Imagine the soft glow of electric lights in Republic cities, powered by the great dam that was secured through courage and defended through sacrifice. These lights represent more than mere illumination. They symbolize the human capacity to restore what was lost, to build what was only dreamed of, to create oases of civilization in the wasteland of a broken world. Feel the gentle desert breeze that carries the scent of growing things, crops in the fields, flowers in the gardens, life renewed in soil that once seemed barren. This breeze whispers of cycles of destruction and renewal, of seeds planted in hope and harvested in gratitude, of the eternal human capacity to begin again. Let your breathing slow to match the patient rhythm of democratic governance, sometimes quick with the urgency of decision, sometimes slow with the deliberation of wisdom, but always steady with the persistence of people committed to working together despite their differences. Allow the weight of the day's concerns to lift from your shoulders as you contemplate the larger rhythms of history. The New California Republic's story reminds us that progress is possible, that cooperation can triumph over conflict, that hope can outlast despair. In a world where headlines often bring news of division and violence, the Republic's example provides a beacon of possibility. And so, dear traveler, our gentle exploration of the New California Republic comes to its quiet end. We have walked together through more than 2 centuries of history, witnessing the transformation of scattered survivors into citizens of a great democracy. We have seen crops grow in poisoned soil, cities rise from rubble, and hope triumph over despair through the patient work of ordinary people committed to extraordinary ideals. As you drift towards sleep, carry with you the peaceful images of this remarkable civilization. Picture the trading caravans moving safely along well-maintained roads, their guards alert but relaxed because they travel through lands where law and order prevail. See the schools where children learn not just facts and figures but also the civic virtues that will enable them to be good citizens and neighbors. Feel the satisfaction of the farmers who know their work feeds their communities, the pride of the craftspeople whose skills improve their neighbors' lives, the quiet contentment of the elderly who have lived to see their children grow up in a world more just and prosperous than the one they inherited. Remember the words of President-Tandi, who understood that democracy is not a destination but a journey, not a structure but a process, not a guarantee but a possibility that each generation must choose anew. Her vision of communities working together in voluntary cooperation based on shared values and mutual respect continues to inspire and guide the republic she helped to create. Let the gentle sound of the republic's flag fluttering in the desert breeze be your lullaby tonight. That 2-headed bear represents not just strength but also vision, the ability to look both backward to honor the best of the past and forward to build an even better future. Like the Republic itself, it stands watch through the night, a symbol of endurance and hope. Rest now in the knowledge that somewhere in the wasteland, democracy survives and flourishes. Citizens exercise their rights and responsibilities with quiet dignity. Communities solve their problems through discussion and compromise. Leaders serve rather than rule. Justice is available to all, not just the powerful. Progress continues, measured not in conquest but in the growing capacity of people to govern themselves with wisdom and compassion. The New California Republic endures as proof that the light of civilization can never be completely extinguished, that from the ashes of destruction can come renewal, that from the chaos of war can come peace, and that from the divisions of the past can come the unity of democratic purpose. Sleep peacefully tonight, knowing that the bear flag flies over a people who chose cooperation over conflict, democracy over dictatorship, hope over despair. Their example lights the way for all who would build rather than destroy, unite rather than divide, serve rather than rule. Sweet dreams, traveler. Sweet dreams of democracy, of cooperation, of communities where neighbors help neighbors and citizens shape their own destiny. Sweet dreams of the New California Republic, where the best hopes of humanity have found expression in the patient work of people committed to the common good. The Republic watches over your sleep as it watches over all who believe in the possibility of a better world. Rest well, and may you wake refreshed and ready to contribute your own efforts to the great work of building civilization, one choice at a time, one community at a time, one generation at a time. Good night, and may your dreams be filled with the peaceful prosperity that democracy makes possible. And so, gentle wanderer of the wasteland, our chronicle of the New California Republic reaches its peaceful conclusion. We have journeyed together through more than 200 years of remarkable transformation, from the first tentative steps of cooperation in post-war Shady Sands to the confident stride of a mature democracy spanning much of the Western continent. We have witnessed the quiet heroism of ordinary people who chose hope over despair, cooperation over conflict, and the common good over personal advantage. We have seen how democracy can take root and flourish even in the harshest conditions, how institutions can adapt and grow while maintaining their essential character, and how the patient work of citizenship can accomplish what force and violence never could. The story we have shared is far from over. Even now, as you settle into rest, the great experiment of the new California Republic continues. Citizens participate in town meetings, students attend schools, farmers tend their crops, and traders travel safely along well-maintained roads. The institutions that began as desperate innovations for survival have become the foundation for a civilization that offers hope and inspiration to all who encounter it. Perhaps in your dreams tonight, you will find yourself walking the peaceful streets of a republic settlement where children play safely and adults work with purpose. Perhaps you will sit in on a community meeting where citizens exercise their right to be heard and to shape their own destiny. Or perhaps you will simply rest in the knowledge that democracy endures, that cooperation triumphs, and that the best of human nature finds expression in the daily life of a free people. Thank you for sharing this journey with me, for letting your imagination embrace the possibility of renewal and redemption that the Republic represents. May the story we have explored together inspire your own efforts to build community, to serve the common good, and to believe in the power of ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary things. The new California Republic stands as a testament to what is possible when people choose to work together rather than apart, when they value democracy over dictatorship, and when they commit themselves to leaving the world better than they found it. That legacy endures, that example inspires, and that hope remains alive in every heart that believes in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Rest well, friend, and dream of the Republic where democracy flows like water in the desert, where cooperation blooms like flowers in the wasteland, and where the light of human dignity shines bright against the darkness of a broken world. Sleep peacefully now, under the protection of the two-headed bear, symbol of strength and vision, guardian of democracy and freedom. The Republic watches over your rest as it watches over all who cherish liberty and justice for all. Good night, and may the spirit of the new California Republic guide your dreams toward a tomorrow bright with democratic possibility.